should we put in there? The 17th, June 17th?
No, May 13th?
Oh, May 13th. Yes, June, July? Okay. Oh, wow.
July 8th, that Bridgewater self-storage is not happening. That's not on your list.
That goes back. All right, we're going to get these two done tonight, so we don't have to worry about it. All right, good evening, everyone. We're going to call this meeting to order. It's the April 8th, 2025 Bridgewater Township Zoning Board of Adjustment. Adequate notice of this meeting was provided in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-6. Specifically, on January 15th, 2025, proper notice was sent to the Courier News and the Star Ledger and filed with the clerk of the Township of Bridgewater and posted on the Municipal Bulletin Board. Please be aware of the Zoning Board of Adjustment policy for public hearings. No new applications will be heard after 9:30 p.m. and no new testimony will be taken after 10 p.m. If you're able, please rise for the salute to the flag.
The United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Good evening, Nancy. If we could have a roll call, please.
Chairman Foose,
I'm here.
Mr. Wiley,
Here.
Mrs. Amin,
Here.
Mr. Sweeney,
Here.
Mr. Fresco,
Here.
Mr. Bongiorno,
Here.
Mr. Gajewski,
Here.
Mr. Seacat,
Here.
Mr. Kulak,
Here.
Mr. Vesio,
Here.
Mr. Gabbett.
Here.
For the record, Rich Aller, Board Attorneys present, Engineer, and Catherine Sarmad, Board Planner. You have a quorum, you can proceed.
All right, thank you very much. We're going to open the meeting up to members of the public that would like to speak on any land use issue which is not on our agenda tonight. Seeing none, I'm going to close that portion. We have no minutes, and Rich, you can correct me, we don't have any resolutions, right?
Correct, none.
All right, great. Then first up tonight is going to be Visions and Pathways, Block 508, 401, 8 3rd Avenue. Good evening.
Again, thank you so much. And if you recall, we were here in February.
Can you talk into the microphone, please?
Yeah. Let me get down here. Thank you. Yeah, we were here at the February meeting, presented our application. We had testimony by the director, and then we had our engineer, architect, and a question came up, and I think she's here, with respect to the affordable housing component. And what we have this evening, we did submit a report, and again, thank you, your professionals, they're so great to deal with, but we did submit a report on the affordable housing, and what I'd like to do is to call upon Ashish Patel from Monarch to take us through that report and address the affordable housing component as part of this application. And if you recall, what's proposed here is a model that provides housing for young adults that are transitioning out of group homes, and we provided last time the layout. What we'd also like to do this evening is I'm going to recall my engineer, Todd Hay, to talk briefly about the comments from the fire department, and there was also a question with respect to the aesthetics of the building, so we have our architect just to briefly present the testimony with respect to the changes in the color on the elevations, and then finally, Nicholas Graviano, our professional planner, to address the variance. So,
Right. And Mr. Hale, just so you're aware, we're going to go till about 8:35, 8:40. And Nancy just took me through the available spots out in the future. It's very long, and there's very few.
Well-
So I'm going to try and keep my mouth shut as much as possible, which I know is a feat. Case is yours, and if we need
I
another night,
appreciate
I
it.
understand. It's,
Yep.
that happens, but,
yeah, we'll be concise and certainly entertain any questions.
all right, thank you.
Yes, so I'd first like to call upon Ashish Patel. And you could join me up here. And is this, I don't know if that's, here, I'll slide this one over.
So, Mr. Patel, would you, Mr. Patel, would you remain standing, raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you, sir.
Okay. So, Mr. Patel, I know you prepared and we submitted to the board an overview. But first, take a few minutes and just give the board a little bit background of you and Monarch.
So Monarch is a consulting company. We have been around since 1990, working with nonprofits, for-profits, housing authorities, and other people who are developing affordable and supportive housing. Primarily, we do that on the financing side, but also the overall development process. I've been there since 1994. My background is that I have a bachelor's degree in architecture and master's in management. I've been working on projects since then, probably over 3,000 units in that time frame, all over New Jersey. And currently we have about 40 to 50 projects in our office that we're working on. And I lead our housing development team, and I also serve as a board member on the Supportive Housing Association of New Jersey's nonprofit board. I'm also a vice chair for the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee at the Federal Home Loan Bank of New York.
Great, thank you. Counsel, I guess he would qualify as an expert, but he's really giving factual testimony here.
Background is helpful. I don't think he's qualifying as an expert.
I agree,
It's helpful
yeah.
to understand he's
Sure.
knowledgeable in the area.
Great, thanks. So you prepared a report that we submitted to the board on dated April 3rd. If you could please take the board through what's proposed by this model and how it impacts the affordable.
Yeah, so the model housing is actually very similar to a number of projects that our office works on throughout the state that qualify as affordable housing under the COA regulations. It's an apartment-style model where each of the individual units are apartments, in this case studios, and they all have their own bathrooms, kitchenettes, and living areas, and each is rented to somebody who is income qualified, so very low income individuals, in this case, aging out youth. Each person will be an adult. They will be signing a lease. They will be paying 30% of their income towards rent. And it will be permanent housing, so it's a lease-based model. Visions and Pathways will be providing supported services to the residents that are living there on site as well as in the community, and helping coordinate services for the youth also. As affordable and supportive housing that has income restrictions, it does qualify under the COA regulations as supportive housing.
And I assume the board has had an opportunity to review the report that was submitted, and certainly Mr. Patel is here to answer any question. We worked with, obviously, with Catherine and responded to, and they were great, her and Darlene, focusing on what they wanted our report to, the issues to address, so.
Okay,
Can
yeah.
I ask you one? I have one question. One of the things that we talked about tonight and the other night was that they give 30% of their salary to rent. What if there's a period of time then when they're not working?
So typically with a lot of affordable housing, whether you're talking about this population or somebody that's either homeless or a lot of times people don't have jobs, especially when they come into housing of this nature. If they have SSI or SSD, that would be considered their income. So a portion of that would be put towards rent. The project will receive operating subsidies also, and those will cover a major portion of the operating expenses. If you really think about it, if somebody's paying 30% of their income and they're very low income, so they're making below 30% of the area median income, they could be paying anywhere from $200 to $500 a month in rent. That won't be enough to cover the operational expenses. So anything outside of that, that would be considered what the normal rent would be for the unit, would be covered by the operating subsidy. So similar to Section 8, they're just a different type of operating subsidy.
Okay, so if they're out of work for a month or two, it wouldn't make a,
No, I mean, as long as they're abiding by the lease regulations, their income status doesn't really impact the overall income of the building. The rental subsidy covers whatever portion they're not paying.
okay, all right, thank you.
Yep.
30% net or gross?
There is a formula to figure out that, so it's typically net. There are a few things that are taken off. So it's, but you're talking about just whether it's a $50 or $100 difference. It's not a major amount, but it is off of net. There's a form that's typically used to calculate the income of the individual.
And the last page of the report has the income limit categories, and you said these are going to be very low income?
Correct.
So that would be, if they're one person, about 53,000 and change, correct?
Yeah, in Somerset County, obviously the income is higher. It's a regionally based income calculation that HUD uses. And 53,000 is, honestly, it's on the higher end of what we would typically see for an individual that's considered homeless. I mean, it's going to be tough for them to have that level of an income, especially when they're kind of aging out youth that are in their 18 to 24-year-old range.
And the other thing that you mentioned earlier at the last meeting was that they couldn't have a car?
It's not that they couldn't have a car. It's that, again, New Jersey, we understand that the insurance costs of vehicles are expensive. Having a car is expensive alone by itself. Paying for insurance and other pieces that you need as a necessity in the state also is expensive. And in supportive housing, typically you have a 10% range of people that can actually afford a car and have it. And a lot of times that's with family support that they're able to make that happen. So if there's a family member that can help you pay your insurance bills, things like that, that's what we typically see in most of the projects that we work on, where somebody might have a car, but typically they don't have the access to.
Well, if they don't have access to private car, how would they get to work?
So a lot of times that's coordinated by the service provider, in this case Visions and Pathways, or they take public transportation. The location of this area, obviously you're close to the mall, you're close to other areas, you can actually walk there. It's not a tremendous distance for you to travel to. Or I know in some projects that I've worked on, they've had relationships with Uber and Lyft where they provide a monthly stipend to people to be able to take transportation. So transportation is typically coordinated. I know the county itself has for people who are disabled. If they have any disabling conditions, they'll coordinate transportation through Access Link and other services. So there's a multiple number of ways they can actually get to where they need to go to.
All right, a different line of questioning now, because I guess at the last meeting, one of the neighbors mentioned that his house was broken into. So my question to you is there any kind of screening that you put the candidates through before they move into the complex?
So I'm probably not the right person to answer that question because I'm on the development side of this work. So that would
If
be
if
more
we
of a
could focus on
service.
the April 3rd letter. This is,
Okay.
we want to make sure that this project complies with New Jersey affordable housing rules. I think I'd like to, push questions off and go to Catherine, and let's make sure that she's okay with this, and then our Affordable Housing Council, Darlene, is also okay with this, and then the board can ask any subsequent questions we might have. So it does sound like this is going to be an affirmative for what we need to qualify.
Correct. So this was in result of the last hearing where I'd started to discuss, let's stop calling them apartments for the reasons of affordable housing. As you can see from the letter, it stipulates very clearly that these are permanent supportive housing units per the COA regulations, and so, which are still in effect. And so that captures perfectly what we needed to make sure that these are not required to have an income and bedroom distribution that are similar to the UHAC requirements, the Uniform Housing Affordability Controls. This letter is also the direct result of a virtual meeting we had with Visions and Pathways, Monarch, and some of the other representatives with Darlene Green, who's the township's affordable housing planner. So we wanted to make sure that everything was captured on the affordable housing regulation side. She had reviewed this memo, or this letter. I had also reviewed the letter. We're comfortable with the terms, and if the applicant's agreeable to it, we'd like to put a condition in the resolution that basically just says that the deed restriction, as noted in here, that's going to be 40 years, will have the language that's approved by herself as the Township Affordable Housing Planner and myself as the Board Planner.
Okay, you, Rich? Okay.
And other than that, I think this clarifies the affordable housing portion of it.
Wonderful, that's great news. All right, does the board
Mr.
have any?
Chairman, no objection to that deed restriction. Again, I'd like to thank Catherine and Darlene for invaluable help in working on this.
That's great. Any follow-up questions for Mr. Patel on his April 3rd letter? All right, Bill, you have any questions?
I do not, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Rich, are you okay?
I'm good, yes.
All right, Mr. Hill, we're satisfied with the letter, and Mr. Patel, thank you for coming.
Did you want me to briefly recall Mr. Walker to address the screening question?
Well, let's open Mr. Patel up for questions from the
I'm
public.
sorry.
And right now, if any members of the public have questions on Mr. Patel's testimony regarding his April 3rd letter that qualifies this project as New Jersey Affordable Housing compliant, now's the time to come up. You can ask questions. All right, seeing none. Mr. Patel, thank you. It sounds like you,
Great job.
and if you want to call Mr. Walker up, by all means.
I think you addressed it last time, and let him, it's been a little while, so.
Yeah, it sounds like a board member had a question how some of these folks are going to get to work, and I think that's probably Mr. Walker's domain.
And Mr. Walker,
Yeah, Mr. Walker, why don't I just swear you again? It's been a while, right? So do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God. Thank you. And your name for the record, please?
David Walker III.
Thank you.
okay. Mr. Walker, obviously, you've heard the testimony of Mr. Patel. If you could briefly touch on the question from the board with respect to the screening process.
Yes, the residents will be screened through our Prosperity Independent Living Skills Program and through the Department for Children and Families. So for aging out youth, there's a life skills program. For Visions and Pathways, that life skills program is called Prosperity. And so in order to be eligible for independent living, a youth who ages out of foster care must go through a life skills program such as Prosperity, and that is a screening process.
I'm not sure I understand. So they go through this life screening
Life skills program.
there? They
Yes.
do background check, or what do they do?
Well, before a young person is in our group home and in similar programs, there are certain criteria that they have to meet. So they cannot have committed what would be a felony if they're an adult. No arsonists, no violent crimes. So that is the screening process before coming into our group homes, coming into our programs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other board questions for Mr. Walker?
Question.
Please, Mrs. Amin.
Mr. Walker, behind this particular property on the other side of 4th Avenue, there are two houses that are existing. Are they part of your,
No, I'm trying.
those are called passageway or something, some kind of name, which, there are two houses
We
right
do
on
own a
4th Avenue.
property on 3rd Avenue, which is called My Place.
No, you're on 3rd Avenue.
Yes.
And your property goes all the way to the back.
To 4th Avenue.
4th Avenue.
Yes.
Right at the back where you have the driveway, on the other side of the driveway, there are two properties, and on the map, when I looked at it, it says passageway or something like that. Is it part of your housing?
I believe you're talking about our Passages program, and yes, that property is part of Visions and Pathways.
Because those two houses have a lot of parking spaces, and I was wondering if they will allow you to share those parking spots. That's the reason why I'm asking.
Yes, definitely, yes. The residents in Bridge House, this project, would have access to parking at our Passages property.
Because on the map, when I looked at it on Google, there was a lot of parking over there. And
Yes, so there's sufficient parking across the street. But as Ashish was saying, very few of the residents of this property will have a vehicle. We do provide transportation through our Passengers Independent Living Skills Program and through our other programs. And there is public transportation readily available. So even though most of the tenants will not have a vehicle, their transportation will be afforded for work and school.
Any other questions? Board professionals?
I have no additional questions for this witness.
No questions. All right, members of the public, questions for Mr. Walker? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you, David. Right. Mr. Chairman, as I mentioned, I'd like to briefly recall Todd Hay, our engineer, because after the last hearing, we received some comments from the fire department that I'd like Mr. Hay to address. And because it's been a while.
Yes,
Yes.
Mr. Hay, would you raise your right hand? Stand, please. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. And your full name for the record again, please?
Todd M. Hay, H-A-Y.
Thank you, Mr. Hay.
And Mr. Hay, you've been sworn, your license as an engineer is still in full force and effect?
Yes, until next year, that's correct.
Okay. All right. Since the last hearing, we did receive a comment from the fire department. If you could please address that comment with the board, and I know you did have an opportunity to speak to the fire department.
Yep, thank you, appreciate it. So, Mr. Chairman and the board, we did have a meeting and a follow-up call with the fire chief. We were able to sit down and talk to him about what type of radius and also width that we can include, basically increase the driveway to. We came up with 20 feet, from 18 feet to 20 feet with a 5-foot radius. He did say that that was sufficient for what he needed to do to come off of 4th Avenue. So we would submit to you that even with that increase, which would be about 67 to 69 square feet, in the record plan that does increase the impervious coverage, it was 42.16%. It would go up to 42.5%. Keep in mind that the record plans that were approved nearly over 10 years ago, that record plan was 50.7%. So I just want to put on the record that we're way below still the impervious coverage. The fire chief has been satisfied, and we should be able to go ahead and amend the plan. We'd ask that to be put as a condition in a resolution if this application were to be approved.
Is it just the opening that you're talking about, or is it the whole?
Just the opening.
Okay.
Council.
And again, we appreciate the fire department working with us on that.
Yeah, on my fire marshal letter, I had a Pierce turning performance analysis, and I guess that's for one of the trucks at the Green Knoll Fire Department. So you're okay with that? That's going to comply?
Yes, and we did speak to him about that because he needed really just the 20 feet. So the turning template would also be part of that record in a resolution change plans, correct?
Okay. And you also got the comment that they want the knockbox on 4th Avenue?
Yes, we did get that as well. That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
All right, very good. Any other board questions? All right, board professionals?
I have nothing for this witness.
Yeah.
Just one quick question, Mr. Chairman. So at the last hearing, there was testimony about water service being provided to this site off of the existing main on 4th Ave.
Right.
I don't think there's water main, public water off of 3rd. There's a property owner directly adjacent that may benefit from public water access. Right. And my question to the applicant is, would they be willing, if that homeowner is interested, would they be willing to grant an easement or rights to tap into that water main?
Mr. Chairman, yeah, Mr. Byrne and I have spoken about this, and I've spoken to my client. Yes, we would offer a easement that would accommodate this owner, and we would put that in as a rider to the deed with this property. And we would also update the map accordingly.
Do we know a block and lot of that property?
I believe that's lot 17, Mr. Burr.
508-17.
And that's okay with the applicant to grant that easement? We'll put that in as a stipulation?
Yes, as a condition. That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
So is everybody on 3rd unwell? Is that what's happening over
Pretty
there?
much so. Everybody on 3rd is on well.
All right, and there's nobody else we can pick up through an easement, unfortunately?
Not unless you do a water main extension. That
It's-
would be a whole.
It's still very kind of you guys for doing that. At least we can get one on public service.
Yes, it would benefit that neighbor considerably.
You good, Bill? All right. Members of the public, follow-up questions? If we can just get your name and address, please.
Bill Linville, 1021 Tulo Farm Road. I'm here because the neighbor that you were just talking about with the well is a close friend. He couldn't be here tonight. It would be very good if that is in the resolution, that he gets an easement so that he can get off his well and onto municipal water, or American Water is the company. And that would be greatly appreciated.
All the lawyers are shaking their heads, so I think you're going to be
Yeah,
all right
got it.
if this is approved.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, any other members of the public? All right, we're good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Todd. Mr. Chairman, I'd now like to recall David Buckman, our architect. Sorry.
Again, would you stand and raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God. And again, for the record, your full name, please. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. And Mr. Buckman, if you could confirm, your license as an architect is still in full force and effect?
Still good.
Good. All right, so at the last hearing, a question came up with respect to the renderings, and I believe you have some revised renderings for the board to take a look at, responding to the questions on the colors.
Yes.
And we could
So,
perhaps,
Steve, I think we're up to A3,
yes.
where you're at? Okay. So if you would mark that A3 with today's date, please.
Today's date.
So it's similar to it's the front, it's labeled front view, and now it is A3, today's date, 4/8/25. What we had last week, or last meeting, was also the front view, but we changed the colors. It was brought up that you guys would like it to be earth tones, and so we made it earth tones. We've got,
Let's make sure everybody can see it.
yeah, I'm sorry. So we've made that change on here, and we've we've changed the colors. Like they were green and blue last time, and now they are a tan and a brown, a beige. Thanks. So we've also added a couple of chimneys. When we looked back, we had originally looked at the original approval that you guys approved, or this board approved 14 or 13 years ago, and wanted to have a similar look, and thought that the chimneys really would even make it even more of a compatible look to what you guys had approved before. So we did take that into consideration again.
Since you've compared that to, since you verbally compared that to what the board approved before, my question is, in terms of square footage, how does this compare with what the board approved 12 or 13 years ago?
Good question. I don't have it off the top of my head. It is larger, but in square footage, we have more square footage. And that building had a large two-story space with like a balcony, rooms up above, overseeing that room. We needed to we put floor in there for a couple reasons. One, due to HIPAA and all that security and reasons for that, we couldn't. They were going to have meetings in that big space, but you couldn't do that because just HIPAA regs. You couldn't have other people who might hear any meetings or any discussions going on in that space, and also it just was kind of inefficient, especially today with heating and cooling spaces. It was just more efficient and a better plan here now. And since then, a lot of the spaces need to be bigger now than they did 14 years ago.
So it's bigger, but you can't tell us how much bigger. See, here's my concern.
I could.
Here's my concern.
Yeah.
In terms of floor area ratio, you need a big variance because you're proposing what, 0.40, 0.4, where 0.25 is what's allowed. And I think this proposed building is going to be way more massive than any of the buildings adjacent to it or in the neighborhood there. Help me understand that. Make me more comfortable about how it's going to fit in.
Mr. Sweeney, I just want to, sorry to jump in. I just looked at the resolution of approval because he was unable to answer the question about the size. And this building's about 400 square feet bigger than the original approval.
So it's very similar in size.
There's a .38 FAR previously approved, and this is a .40.
Thank you, Catherine. Appreciate it.
Problem. No problem.
Yeah.
So if you then could address the part of my question about how it fits in with the surrounding area and especially the immediately adjacent properties.
Well, the other properties have gable roofs similar to this. Most of them are 2 stories. I believe one isn't. One is, I think, a ranch, but the others are 2 stories like this. It will be wider, but massing-wise, it's not terribly bigger in the feel of the building itself, the mass of the building. It's not like close to the road, it's not overbearing at all. It's set back quite a bit, well, especially in the back, but in the front even, you can see these other houses are set back or closer to the street. But yeah, it is a bit bigger, but massing-wise, it won't feel overbearing at all.
Could you give me some specifics about how this 8,000 square feet you're proposing compares to or with any property, any other property in the area?
And Mr. Sweeney, we do have our professional planner to address the variances.
Well,
but I'll
let's
let
give
him
this guy a
continue here
shot, too.
From an architectural standpoint.
And I can take estimates. I never did calculations on any of the homes around, but you can see here, by the way, we're about 4,000 square foot footprint, okay? Because it is 2 stories. You can see this house here. I mean, I can estimate the dimensions, but you can see it. This is not much bigger than this house. Of course, we have the buildings over here, and it's very comparable with that. This is a pretty small home. This one is probably a third to half the size, estimating based on this satellite photo. If that helps you. But again, it's not like it's straight up with a flat roof. It is going up with the pitched roof. Pitched roof, all these homes have pitched roofs except one, which is a hip roof. But very similar in look, and they fade away. You know, it's going back. It's not like it's going straight up and then horizontally back. I hope that answers.
So your testimony then is that it will be compatible with existing adjacent developed residential areas?
Yes, the finishes they're pretty much all the same. Most of them are all horizontal siding. We have the same. We want it to fit in. We purposely want it to fit in.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Now, this is a zone area, and I know you're not the planner, but this is a zone area that it's in transition. So, you know, the Middlebrook facilities, there are office buildings to the east, which are much larger in square footage. So, you know, I know we're comparing residentials and we want to keep apples to apples, but this is not the biggest building by any stretch in the area, correct?
Correct. I believe you're talking about the office buildings that's kind of right here.
Yeah. Well, and also on the main road.
8 stories or something.
On the main road, you do have 2 office buildings and a post office, you know,
On Bridge.
which have a lot of square footage as well.
That is correct.
All right. I just wanted to make sure the board was aware.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other questions? Professionals?
I don't believe I have any questions about the updates.
All right, thank you.
One question. So, Mr. Buckman, prior meeting, I think the testimony was there's 10 studio apartments, each with their own kitchenettes, correct?
That is correct.
Recognizing that this project is geared toward young adults that may not have prior independent living experience, would it be appropriate to have a stipulation that there be no gas stoves in those units? Could a condition be agreed to that we're talking about electric or induction cooktops?
Whatever, if that's what the board wants, we could do that. That's no problem.
Getting nods from the client.
Yes, certainly up to the board, but I wanted to throw it out there.
I just think back to when I was 18, an open flame and me may not have been the best combination.
I walked home to
I also don't want to
the
add
other night.
expense to the project. I know induction, and also you need certain special pots. You need ferrous pots and pans, right?
I just don't want open flame.
Yeah, I think, either electric or induction, if that's okay with the applicant, just something to think about. We're forgetful, and, a new rentee may not understand this doesn't shut off automatically, and I don't know, when I was 18, I certainly wasn't aware of that. Thanks, Bill.
That will be fine if that's what the board wishes.
Okay.
I believe we will have, we may have gas for the, we have washer dryers in the bottom level.
Yeah, I was more thinking open flames.
Yeah, no, I.
Minimize that.
Bad idea.
All right, thank you.
Might be some regs for that anyway. We haven't thought about that yet.
All right. Members of the public, questions for Mr. Buckman on his architectural testimony? All right, seeing none?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
I'd now like to call on Nicholas Graviano, our professional planner.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Your full name for the record, please, and please spell it.
Yes, my first name is Nicholas with an H, last name Graviano, G-R-A, V as in Victor, I-A-N-O.
And Mr. Graviano, if you could please give the board the benefit of your work, educational experience, area of expertise, licenses you hold, and whether you've been qualified as a professional planner before other boards or courts of the state of New Jersey.
Certainly, I hold a bachelor's degree from Rutgers University, a master's degree in city and regional planning from Rutgers University. I have a law degree from the Temple University School of Law, where I received distinguished class performance in state and local government law. I've testified before boards and governing bodies in over 100 municipalities in 18 counties. I am a professional planner in the state of New Jersey and also hold the AICP certification.
Thank you. I would offer Mr. Graviano as a professional planner.
All right, the board accepts your
Great.
qualifications.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right, Mr. Graviano, you're obviously well familiar with the project and the application. If you could please provide the planning testimony for any relief being sought in connection with this project.
Certainly. The applicant is before the board this evening requesting D1 and D4 variance approval to construct an affordable housing building. The potential residents of the building have been discussed at length at the two hearings. This is for youth 18 to 24, which are aging out of foster care. The site is identified as on the tax maps as Block 508, Lot 4.01. That's an oversized lot. It's 20,000 square feet in a zone requirement of 10,000 square feet. I think the chairman stole a little bit of my thunder before when he was talking about the surrounding land uses. This is actually an area of mixed land uses. On Shasta Drive, you have the 5- and 7-story Centerbridge Senior Living Building. Additionally, you have the applicant's building on 4th Avenue. On North Bridge Street, you do have the medical office. And the remainder of the uses are primarily single-family residential in nature. This property is located in the R10A zoning district. That zoning district permits single-family detached dwellings, houses of worship, as well as group homes under certain conditions. So the applicant is requesting the D1 use variance to permit the affordable housing building, 10 units, on the subject site. Additionally, the applicant is requesting a D4 FAR variance to permit an FAR of 0.45. This is based on a recalculation after the previous meeting. The applicant is also requesting bulk variance related to impervious coverage, 42.16% where 35% is permitted. For off-street parking spaces, the applicant is providing 6 off-street parking spaces, whereas 21 are required. And then lastly, the setback of the parking area does not meet ordinance requirements. The parking setback 4.5 feet from the property line where 10 feet is required. So as all the time and away from your friends and family has taught you, that the applicant is before you here tonight with what is termed an inherently beneficial use. An inherently beneficial use means a use that's of universal value to the community because it fundamentally serves the public good and promotes the general welfare. Such uses include hospitals, schools, child care centers, group homes, and New Jersey courts have ruled that creation of 100% affordable housing was determined to be an inherently beneficial use. That's the Homes of Hope case. So when you look at inherently beneficial uses, you look at a seminal case called the Sika case, where the court outlined a 4-point balancing test for which boards should look at when reviewing an inherently beneficial use. The first prong is to identify the public interest at stake. The second prong is to identify any detrimental effects that will ensue from the grant of the variance. The third prong is whether the board can reduce any potential impacts by imposing reasonable conditions. And then lastly, the board must weigh the positive and negative criteria and determine whether the granting of the variance would cause a substantial detriment to the public good. So looking at the first prong, the public interest at stake, the applicant is providing affordable housing for young former foster care kids that have aged out of foster care. Additionally, this site is identified on the township's third-round plan as being a site that will accommodate 10 affordable housing dwelling units. So this site has been identified to meet the affordable housing needs of the municipality. Looking at prong 2, any potential harmful impacts associated with granting the variance. And in the context of this application, as you heard from the testimony of the engineer, the applicant, and the architect, there are no substantial negative impacts from the proposed building. It's very akin to a group home, which is a permitted use in this district. While the space constitutes studio apartments, this is actually a configuration which creates a better living situation for the residents and creates better life skills for the residents than you would have in an ordinary group home situation where there would be shared kitchen facilities and shared bathroom facilities and the like. Here, each individual resident has their own dwelling unit. The third condition, whether the board can impose reasonable conditions on the applicant. You heard one previously. The applicant's certainly willing to provide electric stoves for the residents. Additionally, the board requested that the applicant provide easement to the surrounding property owner to provide water service to the spot. So that's certainly a reasonable condition that the board has imposed on the applicant with respect to the application. Then lastly, the fourth prong, the balancing the positive and negative criteria. There's certainly a significant public interest in providing the affordable housing, and the township has provided this site in its affordable housing plan to accommodate such housing. Certainly here, any potential detriments of granting this D1 use variance is outweighed by the fact that the applicant is providing housing to meet the needs of an at-risk population, but also to meet the needs of the affordable housing requirements of the municipality. Moving on to the D4 floor area ratio variance. The applicant is requesting the 0.45 FAR. Here, the test to grant the FAR variance is outlined in the Coventry Square case, which the applicant must demonstrate that the site can accommodate the proposed use given the increased FAR that's being requested before you this evening. I would like to note, while the applicant is requesting a FAR variance, approximately 58% of the site will remain green space. You could see that on the colored rendering that's before you this evening. The applicant is, while requesting a parking variance, is providing a parking ratio which is akin to what would be provided in a group home. As I stated previously, this use is akin to a group home. You also heard that the applicant has funding sources to provide transportation for the residents. The site can accommodate the drainage from the development, and the site can accommodate the utilities needed to service the community, the enterprise which is proposed. So certainly the granting of the floor area ratio can be granted without substantial impairment to the zone plan or zoning ordinance. This is a D1 use variance, so any of the C variances that are being requested are subsumed into the D1 use variance. But I would just like to make a note that with respect to the parking, the applicant's request for reduced parking is justified by the fact that there's transportation funding by the applicant and that parking ratio is akin to the group home standard. So in conclusion, the applicant is proposing an inherently beneficial use. It certainly advances goals of the master plan, which mention affordable housing over 50 times. It also helps satisfy the township's identified affordable housing obligation in the third round plan. There's no substantial impairment to the zone plan or zoning ordinance with the granting of that variance, and the benefits outweigh any detriments. Same with the floor area ratio variance. The benefits of granting the increased floor area ratio outweigh any detriments, and the site can accommodate the proposed use given the increased requests for FAR.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Graviano. Mr. Chairman, no further questions, Mr. Graviano, at this time.
Board questions for Mr. Graziano's planning testimony.
I have a quick question for you. With respect to the detriments that might be presented by a project like this, as you were looking at the balancing test, you're saying one overcomes the other. But what detriments do you see as a professional planner, if any, to the neighborhood?
I do not see any detriments with this project. When you look at the applicant's property, it is a 20,000 square foot lot. You know, the applicant, with the math of the district, could accommodate 2 single-family dwellings. I don't think the density of this project or the intensity of this project is that much different than what you would get in 2 single-family homes or two group homes, for that matter.
And when we were asked earlier whether it fits into the neighborhood, and we were outlining the various properties that exist in the neighborhood, and you spoke of that early in your testimony, the people who live next door on either side, how does the massing appear to them as they look out their side windows and pull into their driveways? Is that something you would consider a detriment as well?
Not at all, because the applicant is meeting the height requirements of the district. The applicant is also meeting the setback requirements of the district. Mr. Buckman's impeccably designed building looks like a single-family dwelling, so in that context, I do not see any detriment.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Board professionals?
No question, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Graviano. I think he did a good job in outlining the testimony required for the variances. Because this board hasn't dealt with a lot of inherently beneficial uses, at least since I've been here for the past year, if you have any questions about the SECA balancing test, I know Mr. Graviano has outlined the SECA test as it's required, but the board can also when it deliberates, can also go through that 4-pronged test to determine if they have feelings about negative consequences or there are other conditions that can help mitigate those consequences, and then rebalance it. One thing that Mr. Sweeney had brought up and I think, your counsel had said maybe the architect wasn't the best witness, and that as a planner, you could answer, and I think Mr. Kulak just alluded to it, but Mr. Sweeney had asked a question about how, I think what he was getting at was how does the FAR compare to the neighboring properties, and I wasn't sure if you had done any kind of analysis to look at how the FAR compared.
I did not do any analysis on how the FAR compared, but I did observe, as I indicated in the description of the neighborhood, there are numerous buildings with footprints larger than the applicant's building before you this evening. You know, the 2, 5, and 7-story buildings, as well as the applicant's building on 4th and the medical office building on North Bridge all have footprints larger than this building.
I only bring that up because in the prior resolution, they actually noted that the planner had presented an analysis of 10 surrounding properties and found that the FARs were actually higher than was proposed. And if you recall, I'd said it was 0.38, so not far off from what's proposed here at 0.4. And I was just curious if that still was the case. Probably is, because the properties haven't changed much, or the homes existed at the same time 10, 15 years ago. But I was just curious if that was, maybe my question should be, is that likely still true? Are the FARs, as presented in the last case, of the surrounding properties higher than proposed here?
I've had the opportunity to physically walk this neighborhood on 2 occasions, earlier today as well as on Sunday. and through observation of aerial photography, and I certainly feel that the applicant's proposal is in keeping with the established land use pattern of the area. I would calculate FAR, but FAR is difficult to calculate when you don't have the true square footages of buildings. But I think the footprint and the massing of this building is certainly within the character of the neighborhood.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I have no further questions for this witness.
All right, thank you. Members of the public, questions on planning testimony? All right, seeing none. Thank you.
Thank you, Board.
Mr. Chairman, we have no further witnesses for this evening, and certainly any that have testified so far are here if the board has further questions.
Yeah, let's just open it up for one more round of questions. Kind of any loose ends from the board? Questions?
One item on the, I don't think it came up earlier, but on the fire marshal's letter, the fire marshal states that Bridgewater Fire Safety is requesting the fire department connection shall be pipe out to the street off the building 4th Avenue side near the curb. So I'm just taking a quote there. It sounds like the fire department is under the impression that you have a fire protection system and some sort of standpipe system for them to connect to. If those are the stipulations that the fire marshal has, could you provide those provisions?
You're asking for
Our engineer and architect are consulting just to.
Yeah, no problem. You got to talk into a mic.
Go right there. Recalling David Buckman.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that again? Okay, so part of the letter from the fire marshal regarding the truck turning and the knockbox, they state Bridgewater Fire Safety is requesting the fire department connection shall be pipe out to the street off the building 4th Avenue side near the curb.
4th Avenue, yes.
Sorry, just taking that verbatim.
And yes, we will be complying with that, and the knockbox, of course, which we will put on the 4th Avenue side, which is good they said that, because normally we'd go on the front, but we will go from the 4th Avenue side. No
And that's for their hoses, connection for their fire hoses?
Also go on the 4th Avenue side as needed, yes.
Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
Thanks. Any other board members? Any loose ends? All right, we're going to start up deliberations if that's completion of your case.
Sure, and just again, briefly, by way of summary, we again thank the board and the board professionals for your time and consideration. I think all of our witnesses explained the project in much detail. It's an exciting project, provides the affordable housing. Had the testimony, obviously, of the applicant, well qualified, our affordable housing expert, architect, planner, engineer, and again, we appreciate the board's feedback, which I think always leads to a much better project. And again, thank the board professionals and staff for their time.
Likewise, and thank you for addressing all of our concerns. We're going to have Rich take us through the terms, and then we'll open deliberations.
Sure, thank you.
So we did have a few conditions from the last meeting and this meeting as well. They would include, as a condition to any approval, there would be a 40-year deed restriction to create all 10 units as affordable units, restricting all units as either very low or low-income units, which would be subject to review by the board planner and the township's affordable housing planner. Each unit shall be single occupancy and a maximum of 10 residents in the building. There shall be no residential units in the cellar. You'll amend the lighting plan to comply with township ordinances, so no light spillage will extend over the property line. Fences at the side yards shall be board-on-board fencing. You'll submit an operational and maintenance manual for the stormwater management system satisfactory to the township engineer and record it with the county clerk. All new impervious features on the site shall tie into the detention basin on site. Underground water, or the natural spring we talked about, shall be captured and routed to the 3rd Avenue drainage system. You'll relocate the existing brick wall at the northeast corner of the property side yard so it does not extend over the property line. Install the sidewalk along the 4th Avenue frontage beginning at the easterly sideline to the intersection of North Bridge Street. Change the trash enclosures to a masonry enclosure, match the color to the building. and that would be to the specification of the township professional planner. The cellar shall only be used by the residents of the building and for services for the benefit of the residences, and may not be used for commercial uses or rental to others. The building shall be an earth tone color. The exterior building lighting shall only be under the deck canopy and each doorway. No other external lighting shall be attached to the building. The fire department connection shall be piped out to the street off of the building's 4th Avenue side near the curb. We'll install a Knox box at the front of the building. There'll be an easement granted to the neighbor at Block 508, Lot 17, so that the neighbor can tie into the water main. There'll be no gas stoves in the building, only electric or induction ovens and stoves. And that was it.
Is the knockbox on the, you said the front of the building, it's actually the rear of the building.
4th Avenue side.
The 4th Avenue side, right.
Because that's what you said.
Okay, sorry, on the front,
good
yeah,
catch.
right, on the 4th Avenue side.
I'm sorry, the letter says the front of the building for the knockbox,
But it also says the 4th Avenue.
4th Avenue.
for the fire department connection.
So we'll say that they will satisfy the fire department memo.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and they'll present it to the fire marshal, and he'll sign off on it.
Yeah.
Okay?
All right. Before we open up deliberations, any members of the public that would like to speak for or against this case, you can come up and use the microphone. All right, seeing none. Why don't we go down to you, Mr. Vesio? We'll start with you. Good evening.
Sure, thank you. I'm in favor of this application. Thank you to folks like Mr. Walker for looking after this population. They're in this situation kind of at no fault to their own. Really unfortunate circumstances that I'm sure they've had. And this is definitely a benefit to the community and to those children to help them transition to adulthood. So I'm in favor of this application. Thank you.
Mr. Fresco.
I'm also in favor of this, and I think this was a good case, and I'm not usually one to say good case, but I actually think you did a really good job. I think all your experts did an excellent job. I think concerns that I may have had about the operations were addressed by Mr. Walker thoroughly. The way the program works, I think you were very transparent about that. I think the community should feel confident in what you're doing. The architect, the engineer, it's a nice space, it looks nice, it seems efficient. I'm not fearful about the basement any longer. We spent a lot of time talking about the basement. I'm no longer afraid of that. And on top of all those things, it's obviously a great cause and it's a great use, but we're fulfilling some of this affordable housing, the overbearing state that we live in and sort of unrealistic expectations our state puts on us, we are actually fulfilling some of those. So I think that's also a bonus. So great case, thank you. I fully support this.
Thank you. Mr. Sweeney.
I also feel good about the application, and a big reason for my feeling good about it is that this board approved a very similar application 12 or 13 years ago. And while this one is a tad different, it is in most respects very, very similar to what was approved 12 or 13 years ago. I just hope you guys do better than you did last time around in terms of actually building it. But I will vote in favor.
All right, thank you. Mrs. Amin.
Yes, it's a very nice application. I agree with all the points the board members made. And in addition to that one, it helps the township with the affordable housing by adding it to our numbers. So I'm in favor of approving.
Thank you. Mr. Wiley.
I'm in favor of the application. Just a couple comments. I think you did a terrific job on your presentation, all of you. You listened at the first meeting, came back, and basically met all the requirements that we asked for, especially the outside color of the building, which will blend in well. I think the whole house, the whole building will fit nicely into the neighborhood because it has an old house on it now, not being used. And like I said, I'm in favor of it.
Mr. Bongiorno.
I think the application was well presented. everybody who spoke knew what they were talking about. You did provide that it is inherently beneficial. I think just making the few changes that we asked for in the building design is going to make a difference to the neighborhood, and I'm in favor of the applicant.
Thank you. Mr. Gasky.
Yeah, I agree with all the board members, and yes, this is an extremely vulnerable population, and while this certainly does help the town's affordable housing quota, I think it's the town that can really help and make an impact on the lives of these children. And I wish you guys all the best with it, and I'm in favor of it, and I would like to see induction cooktops if you can squeeze it into the budget. I do think they're the safest things. That's it.
Okay.
Yes, I'm in favor of the application. I, appreciate the benefit it will provide to the community. I see no detriment in the application at all and would support it. I'm happy that Visions and Pathways Management will be nearby the building to support that in any way. And in my 27 years here living in this town, I have never heard anything negative happening in that area and didn't even know that, the Visions and Pathways was even there. So I will support. Thank you.
Mr. Kulak.
Yeah, I would echo the other comments that the board members have made. I think we have not only an inherently beneficial use, but we have something of great value to the community and the youth that are in that transitional phase. So thank you for making the effort to come back, even though you didn't get it built the first time, and visit us again. Thank you.
Yeah, from a do no harm perspective, I'm having trouble seeing any sort of detriment. From an inherently beneficial perspective, that's 10 people in a vulnerable population that'll hopefully be a little less vulnerable now. So I'm very much in favor.
And I really have nothing else to add, except I want to thank the original board members. Mr. Sweeney did the heavy lifting on this case. He was the first one to pass it with Mrs. Amin and Mr. Widley, and I think I was here too.
You were all the way
I was the
down there.
fourth alternate at the time, but thank you to the board members that did the due diligence first time around. Mr. Kulak, who sent a bunch of emails, and he had some very important insights. And then, Mr. Walker, your sacrifice, you could have done anything with your career, with your credentials, and you chose to help people that needed help. And, God bless you, and thank you very much. And obviously, I'm in support of this project. So with that, I'll entertain a motion. Mr. Widley, you have a second? Mr. Bongiorno? All right. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Gajewski?
Yes.
Mr. Bongiorno?
Yes.
Mr. Fresco?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes?
Mrs. Amin?
Mr. Sweeney, yeah.
Mr. Widley?
Yes.
Chairman Foose?
Yes. All right. Thank you, everyone. Good luck with your project.
Thank you, and appreciate your time and everyone's help.
All right, you got it. For a quick break? No, let's go. All right. Mr. Silbert, you here?
Oh, perfect, thank you.
Oh, you got it.
Steve? Steve?
Yeah, I didn't believe you.
Can you tap him on the shoulder for me?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it would be.
Audie's not gonna ship car. Is it Audi? I think it was Audi. Audi said they're gonna hold cars now.
Thank you.
They only have 37,000 cars. They said it's enough for like 2 weeks. I think by the end of the week, this thing is gonna be over. But we'll see.
All right, we're ahead of schedule.
They said they got people today, but they got flying.
All right, if we could get the Vision and Pathways folks out to the hallway, we're going to start Land Rover. Yeah, I know. I didn't even think about it, but I'm trying to get as much in as possible. Mr. Silbert, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
All right, if you talk, they'll just leave.
Sounds good.
All right.
Good evening, board members, board professionals, members of the public. My name is Michael Silbert. I'm an attorney at the law firm DeFrancesco Bateman, located in Warren Township, New Jersey, and I have the privilege of representing the applicant this evening, Paul Miller Auto Group, LLC. The applicant appeared before this board and presented its application on January 28th, 2025. I won't be re-summarizing this full application tonight, as the board is already very familiar with it. I would just like to briefly recap some of the key points from the January 28th hearing. So as the board, I'm sure they recall, we began by presenting the testimony of Mr. James Hunter, an architect, regarding the originally proposed sign package. Since then, I'm pleased to report that the sign package has been revised, and the applicant is now proposing one freestanding sign that fully conforms to your ordinance. Before tonight's hearing, I spoke with Mr. Fincy, provided testimony at the last hearing, and he was on the phone and on Zoom with Land Rover out in England and India, and spent many days and hours trying to convince them to allow us to change the sign package, and we were able to do that this evening.
Do you want to introduce this drawing?
We're gonna introduce it. Yes, yes, we are. Following Mr. Hunter's testimony, we presented operations testimony from Mr. David Fincy. As I had mentioned, he's Paul Miller's dealer development director. We then heard from Mr. Mark Walker, the project engineer, who provided the applicant's engineering testimony and presented the site plan. And then the hearing concluded with testimony from Mr. Brian Hartzell, the applicant's electrical engineer, who focused on the exterior lighting plan. So our goal tonight is obviously to conclude the application. I'm going to start off by calling Mr. Walker to briefly explain the revisions to the site plan made since our last hearing, as well as just walk the board through some of the other related engineering submissions. Just very briefly, there's the inclusion of the existing tree counts and the number of trees proposed to be removed, which was the subject of a completeness waiver, in which we promised we would provide in advance of tonight's hearing to the board's professionals, so we've done that. We've also updated the parking space counts in accordance with ITE standards, which will be addressed by our traffic expert. And we also revised sheet 6 of the site plan to demonstrate that on-site unloading process for new car inventory will be done on-site in response to concerns raised by the Bridgewater Police Department. So in that same vein, I'll just reconfirm that the stipulations made during the previous hearing remain true and firm, that the applicant is committed to ensuring that there will be no vehicle unloading from the shoulder of Route 22, and all vehicle unloading will occur on-site, consistent with the updated truck turning plan shown on sheet 6 of Mr. Walker's revised site plan. We're going to hear our architectural testimony from Mr. Dan Bartolus, the applicant's architect. He will walk the board through the design of the proposed dealership and also, Mr. Chairman, address the revised sign package. Mr. Paraguay, the applicant's traffic engineer, will then present his traffic impact analysis and address the on-site parking requirements. And then, of course, to conclude, we have Mr. John McDonough, who will provide the planning testimony in support of the requested D1 use variance and related bulk variances. So, Mr. Oler, Mr. Chairman, the witnesses I have this evening were sworn in at the previous hearing, so they remain under oath.
Yeah, let's do it again. Mark, would you stand up, please? Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
And your full name for the record, please?
Mark G. Walker, W-A-L-K-E-R.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Walker, the board previously accepted you as a professional engineer and an expert witness. Does your license remain in good standing?
Yes, it does.
Excellent. So,
Good evening. I just wanted to bring the board up to speed and some of the changes that have been made. Just a real quick presentation so we can get back into the meat of the application. We did revise the plans. The last revision date is 3/21/2025. A letter from my office was submitted to the board outlining all the changes that were made to the plans. One of the big items was the signage. The signage has been modified to eliminate 3 variances. So right now, the freestanding sign that we have proposed in the front will now fully comply with the ordinance. One of the variances was that we had 3 signs where only 1 was allowed. So now only 1 sign is being proposed,
and we'll get a presentation on that sign detail later tonight. The other variance was a setback. We had a 20-foot proposed setback where 30 feet was required. The new sign is 31 feet from the right-of-way line, so again, that's complying. Allowable sign size, freestanding sign, was 100 square feet. Originally, it was proposed at 250 square feet. That has been reduced down to 99.8, so conforming. So we've eliminated 3 variances with the signs, and now the freestanding sign is fully conforming. With respect to some trees that were previously mentioned, section 126-191C 12 in parentheses, there's a requirement for every 5,000 square feet of disturbance, 3 trees need to be planted on site. And as we testified at the last meeting, 114 trees were required, and we were proposing 15. So we've gone through and we've added some additional trees in. So now we're up to 33, but we still require a variance. A variance is still required for the number of trees. We did receive a police department memo from Sergeant Dan Hennessy dated 3/20/25, and it's relating to car deliveries. He wanted to make sure that there were no car deliveries happening on the highway. We testified to that, so we just wanted to reassure the board that that's not going to happen. We have on sheet 6 of our plans, we have a graphic that shows how an 80-foot long car carrier will be able to deliver the cars safely on the site, not interrupt any of the traffic that happens on site, and be able to easily exit out. And that's the ease of our layout plan with the one-way coming in and the one-way going out. So that detail's actually shown on sheet 6. And in January, we received review reports from the planner, the engineer, fire department, sewer, and the sewer utility. We've addressed all those comments in these plan revisions. There may be additional comments that we get back once they get reviewed. And if we do get some comments back, we'll modify the plans to satisfy those agencies appropriately. With respect to outside agencies, we have just recently submitted, since our last meeting, our DOT application has been submitted to the DOT. And we received our NJDP flood hazard area verification and our flood hazard area permits. We are still waiting for our NJDP wetlands letter of interpretation. We have received the County of Somerset Planning Board approval. We will be submitting for a soil erosion and sediment control permit. Typically, we like to wait until the plans are done before we submit those in to the Soil Conservation District, just because every time you have to resubmit modified plans, they make you file for a reapplication fee. So once we're done with all the agencies and everybody's accepted our plans, we'll be making that application to the Soil Conservation District. And last but not least, the project, we looked at the project from the standpoint of water and sewer extension permits, and we don't generate enough effluent from our site to have to get an official water and sewer extension permit from the DEP. That's my brief report to the board. I'd be glad to take any questions.
Just one thing to note, so it was requested at the last hearing, all of the landscaping variances have been added to the site plan set, their most recent revised version.
Correct.
You can also find it on the landscape plan.
That is correct. Yep.
Board has any?
Okay. Questions for Mr. Walker? Engineering. Board professionals.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of quick questions and comments for Mr. Walker. We did have a chance to do an initial review of the revised submission. I did not, however, have a chance to get a review letter out on the street, but what I can report back is the lion's share of our prior comments have been addressed by way of the updated plans. We had a couple of very minor comments that still remained related to stormwater, nothing substantial, more construction detail related that I can convey to the applicant's engineer, and I'm sure they can address them very easily. A couple of comments in the stormwater O&M manual. Again, nothing substantive, but wanted to let the board know that we did review the revised plans and very much so have addressed many of our comments. The one additional question I had, though, is related to the circulation, the stipulation that there would be no parking for loading activities along Route 22. The only way that that works, though, is also to make sure that there's no vehicles parking on the driveway access in and out to the site. That really needs to be stipulated too as well. If there's vehicles, we see
a dealer that's doing that now.
we see a lot of dealers. One comes to mind where vehicles are lined almost right up to 22. No way a truck
It
carrier can
restricts
get
fire
in.
truck access as well.
Absolutely. So as long as that's stipulated too as well, then I have no additional questions.
Yeah, we could easily strike that as no parking, fire lanes only. That'll keep that, and plus the management will keep the driveway open.
And we'll stipulate to that.
Yeah, we can stipulate to Mr. Burr's comments.
Thank you, Bill.
Similar to Bill, I think that the amendments to the plan, the revisions to the plan did address many of the comments. I appreciate them updating the plans with the landscaping requirements per the questions in the memo. There are some variances required, so I appreciate them putting it on the record, and I think their planner will have to testify to them.
All right, very good.
Thank you.
Sir,
Did I ask questions about the landscaping?
go for it. Just get it on into the microphone there, Bruce.
On page 5 of 15, I'm looking, how many trees are you planning to put down?
Not many. There's actually, if you look on the soil erosion and sediment control plan, which is sheet 7 of 15, we have the existing trees shown on there with X's. So you got to remember the site was previously developed, large building, large parking lot, basically in the same exact area where we are going to build. So simply count the X's on the plan. We've got 1, 2.
Well, on page 5, it looks like you've got 2 tree types and a total of 15 trees going in. Is that correct?
So 14 being removed, 33 being added. So the tree table on sheet 5.
Does landscape deficiencies?
No, that's the variances.
Well, let me go back to, again, number 5 of 15, in the landscape schedule, the first 2 rows show 2 types of trees and a total of 15 trees. Is that the amount of trees that you plan on planting?
No, we're planting 33 trees, so there's also birch trees, river birch trees that are being planted within the basin area.
Those are birches, you said?
Yeah, they're river birches, yep.
And the trees, like that, about every 50 feet up front, what kind of trees are those?
We have alternated those. That was one of the landscaping requirements. Originally, we had just one type of tree in there, and when our review letter came out before the last meeting, we hadn't had a chance to modify those trees. So now we have a couple of different types of trees in there. We have a PC, which is the pear tree. And then we have a CBF, which is, the CBF, I believe, is the columnar,
European horn.
yeah, European hornbeam, which is a columnar type tree.
Catherine, you're okay with all those?
Yeah, I'd like to put a stipulation in just about
Yeah, let's get some communication.
reviewing it, just having the opportunity to.
Let's also get that updated from 15 to 33, the plans. On page 5.
They have 33 in their.
Oh, they do have 33? I'm not looking
There's
at it.
33 in their table, yeah.
What am I looking at? The old one.
old one.
We've submitted a revised
New ones.
site plan. It's the last hearing.
The new plans show 33?
Yes, yeah, it does. So I think where you're not seeing the trees is that we have at the bottom, we have a separate table that lists the river birch trees
what I have.
independently from the tree section in the main table.
Right there, 15. Oh, yeah, 15. These are bushes. These are trees.
No,
Yeah, they are.
it's on somewhere.
Rather than take up time with this, can you just make sure the plan stipulates and shows 33 trees being planted? And for the types, you're going to work with our township planner.
Yes,
Great.
will do. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Did the fire chief provide a memo that says that the truck can get around the whole area?
Excuse me?
Did the fire chief provide a letter or an email or a memo that says that the fire trucks can go around the whole building?
He didn't provide a specific letter that says that, but he's satisfied with the project.
He sent an email the night of last hearing, January 28th, saying that he was satisfied with our updated plans back on the 28th. So we didn't have to do anything with the fire marshal since then.
Sure.
Professionals, you're good? All right. Members of the public, questions on the engineering testimony? All right, seeing none, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bartolus.
Yes, would you please stand and raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your full name, please?
Daniel J. Bartolus, Bartleluc.
Thank you.
And Mr. Bartolus, you didn't appear before the board last hearing, so if you would, to be accepted as a professional witness, can you please offer the board your background and educational credentials?
Sure. Graduated University of Oklahoma in 1970, got my license in New Jersey in 1974.
In what
All four of the
discipline, please?
licenses in the country.
In what discipline?
I'm sorry?
Your license is in what discipline?
Architecture.
Thank you.
All of them, yes. Was a planner for a while, but gave that up. Spoke with numerous boards throughout New Jersey, actually throughout the whole country, so I've been here before. Actually presented the Macy's store back in when Bridgewater Commons got built.
Very good. We accept you as an expert in architecture.
Thank you, Mr. Bruce.
At the last meeting, we started with the most controversial issue that we had. It was requested that we start there, which was for me a little bit of a nightmare, but which was the pylon. And I'm happy to say that Michael and Mark both told you the good news that we have a compliant pylon sign. And I'll get to the presentation of that later in the presentation, but I just want to talk a little bit about the Land Rover brand. The brand was actually started in 1885 as a bicycle company. And after World War II, it stole some ideas from Jeep and borrowed the axle and chassis and invented Land Rover as an off-terrain vehicle with incredible capabilities of off-road. And that was really the essence of the brand. And like most luxury brands, they reinvent themselves every few years in response to the competition and the need to stay current with their brands, with their models. In 2023 and 24, Land Rover decided that they'd reinvent the brand into the house of brands, using the three models that they sell, Range Rover, Discovery, and Defender, which each have distinctive customer bases and desires to own those vehicles rather than just any vehicle. And this concept used different colors and materials to distinguish those three brands from each other. So they started a global identity program in 2024. We're actually one of the first stores to come in and try and get site plan approval for the building. I'm very excited to be here. The building itself, if you've been to Parsippany, the Land Rover Jaguar store that's on Route 46 is one of our projects. A lot of the elements there as far as materials is very similar. The interior is very different, but generally it's kind of a luxury ambiance that they want. And I'd like to go through the plans to just show you what we have. The traveling mic. I'm going to start with the site plan here. I know Mark presented the whole layout, but I think what makes this one so unique, and I've done probably 20 auto dealerships, this is the only auto dealership I've ever done that doesn't have display parking in front of the building, literally along the curb. Normally, this entire frontage would have display cars, sometimes double deep. So there's literally no cars on display for customers from Route 22 to see, other than possibly, well, there's demo cars that are sitting here and a couple of cars that are sitting on the platform outside the main entrance. As you enter the project, the pylon sign is off to one side, custom parking on one side, we have employee parking in the rear, all our inventory stacked in the rear here. These are service vehicle with some charging stations on the end. So a very efficient design, and literally, when you look at the building and the rendering, you just see lots of landscaping, lots of green, and into the building.
For the record, Mr. Bartolus was referring to Exhibit A1.
I won't spend a lot of time on the plan, but just to give you a sense of
Michael, before we get too far on that, I'm up to A5.
Yes, so A2 were the previous architecturals. This, I guess, has been revised. This has been resubmitted and revised, correct?
No, this was never submitted.
Okay, only the signage package then.
Right.
Okay, so then technically this would have been marked with A2. But if you want to mark it as
I'd rather just call it A5. We have an A2. It's different, right?
That's fine.
So, sir, would you just mark that exhibit as A5 with today's date?
Okay. Okay, Exhibit A5. You, on the site, there's the main showroom building, the drop-off for your service vehicles, and the service center. The drop-off area has one or two cars that can pull up and either have a valet take the car and park it for these luxury clients. There's two display vehicles on the platform, which is basically the same material as the interior of the showroom, so that flooring comes from inside out. Entrance is right dead center. One portion of the building will be Range Rover, identified as that brand. The next one is Defender, and the third one is Discovery. And those three brands basically mix together. They're signed differently. There's large skylights, lots of daylight in there. There's large bar area and lounge area for the customers, bunch of sales offices, a new car delivery bay where cars get delivered, and then typical office toilets and that, general offices in the back. The way the service vehicles work is that they would pull into the driveway in the center between the two buildings, and right here is the service advisor. They would come out, write up your car and stuff. Your car will be left and then taken off by the service advisors. When you get into the shop, the customer can actually walk into the shop from the service drive, and the shop itself is a 16-bay shop with alignment, with a tire bay, car wash, detailing, a couple more detailing bays. This is all utilities for the building, but a very efficient building with a break room here to the exterior with a small patio for the employees. Mr. Miller loves daylight, so you'll see in the elevations, there's a lot of daylight in the buildings. We also add major skylights into the shop, so there's always a sense of natural light in the building, not all artificial.
If we could just identify A5 as first floor plan. Yep. Now we have A6. What do you want to title this?
This is the elevations of the building. Building height stands at 27 feet. The right side of the building is the showroom, all glass facade with these three distinct materials for the Range Rover, Defender, and Discovery. It's all a butt joint glass facade, so very transparent, a major entrance in the middle. When you walk in, a major skylight. There's no really receptionist. They just walk to each brand, and the salespeople, it's not a volume store, so they'll see someone pull up, they know they're a customer, they'll go greet them at the door. Then the service drive here with glass doors into the service drive. This is the window wall for the break room. Large clear stories into the shop, and that's the front elevation. The materials here are all very similar to the one we did in Parsippany, all the Lucabond, the very elegant metal material in 3 different colors. The rear of the building, similar. The Lucabond facade, these are the offices, so lots of windows there. This is the exit of the drive-through. Goes into the, from there, they'll either go into the shop or park, and then this is the back of the shop, again with clear stories, big glass doors in the shop itself. And then the 2 sides, the right side elevation also speaks to the 3 brands with a little change in materials for the, identify those 3 brands, again, the Land Rover, Discovery, and Defender, and the balance of the building matches the front. The other west elevation is strictly the service shop. This is actually where, on the side is where the car wash is, so a very simple facade there. I'll show you the rendering, which I think is, really tells you the whole thing. Seven. So here you can see a view basically from Route 22. Like we zoomed in on it because there's about 100 foot of landscaping before you actually get to that curb. And this is the curb I was talking about in the initial presentation, was where we normally park cars. And you normally wouldn't see the building. You'll have to look through a sea of cars or get on the driveway side. So literally there is no cars from Route 22 to the building other than the couple of display cars and possibly some customer that may pull up and want to valet rather than park himself. And then over here is just this, is the demo cars where they're set up for the three different brands where a customer come in, I'd like to test drive that car. They don't put all the inventories in the rear of the building. So if someone wants a different model or whatever, they'll call, they'll get one of the servicemen to bring the car up. They may also, in inclement weather, present that car in the new car delivery, a private showing possibly or something like that. So part of the signature to all of Paul Miller's building is a giant flagpole, basically centered on the facade itself. But you can see the lush landscaping we have on this side with the new car, the demo models, with the break room, patio with stuff. But I think that overall, it's a very understated building. There's not a lot of embellishments. They don't want that. The cars are very understated. So they want the luxury to basically mimic the building itself, the luxury of the cars. With that, let me get to the controversial.
Can I ask you a question while you have that one up there? You said that you'd only have 1 or 2 demo cars out front, and customers could come and they could have their car valet. If I just want to go and park my car, looking at that photo, where would I park?
On the side here. When you first drive in, on the right side, there's a sign that says customer parking. Some customers don't want to park, so they'll pull up there, and a salesman will come out and park their car.
So they can enter from the side over there also? Okay, that is.
Before everybody walk through the front door, because the sequence of
You mentioned the break room. Is that for customers as well?
No, that's strictly for the employees.
So there is no customer lounge?
There's a customer lounge plan. This whole area is lounge for the customer, from a long barista bar to work tables where they're set up for computers and stuff, lounge areas they could sit and work, watch TV or whatever, and all these offices of glass that look out into that. So there's customers only here, no customer in the shop itself. Customer may come in here to buy some small shops look for retail parts. They would come in here and get retail parts, which has to be associated with the part storage. But no customers are literally coming back here.
Thank you.
Back to the rendering. Any comments on this other than the one?
How high is that flagpole?
50 feet?
I think that was a comment. I just remember Ms. Sarmad brought it up during the Chick-fil-A application for the planning board that there's no ordinance requirement as to the flagpole height. So I don't know if we identified the height on the plan, but I'll get back to you if we did.
There's no limit on this, right? This is
Normally we make them
before.
50 though, Michael.
There are no limitations on flagpoles as a
60.
accessory sign or use or whatever.
Right.
Therefore, there are no height
But
restrictions.
if they put their own logo on the sign, it becomes a problem. If
Sorry,
they-
not the sign, the flagpole.
Yes, yes.
Flag-
Strictly for the American flag.
So we can
Beautiful.
stipulate that in the conditions. As far as height, I don't know if Mr. Oler would agree with this, but maybe accessory structure heights would rule there.
For flagpole? I don't know.
I'd like them having a flagpole as high as they want.
That's fine.
yeah.
I would say that I don't like oversized flags, only because they can have wear on them quicker.
I think there's a lot of towns in New Jersey that would probably make you have an American flag lower. So you fly that flag as high as you want.
Thank you.
So this is the revised signage pylon. One pylon, testimony or prior testimony mentioned it's 100 square feet. It's 4'7" by 19.4. The three brands are here, all with very small letters, only 3-inch letters. We argued the fact that they're only 3-inch, but in order to get that thing, the letters themselves taller, the sign gets bigger, it gets shorter, and it gets, you can't see it anyway. So from the ego with the luxury brands is, it's like the Nike swish. All you need to see is the swish, and you know it's Nike. They feel that these materials will soon be identified as the brand itself. So it's very simple, very, 10 inches wide, 19 inches tall, 3 different materials that identify with the 3 brands inside. Everything else, it's all compliant to the ordinance.
For the record, if we could just identify this as Exhibit A7.
We're up to 8.
Oh, I'm
Yes.
sorry, 8.
7 was that prior rendering.
Thank you.
So I want to say, I know it was a small comment, that David spent an enormous amount of time on the phone with people in Wycliffe Lake and in London and then in India, trying to get them convinced that in America you can't do this. No one's going to give you 3 pylons or 4 pylons. We actually sent them tapes of the last hearing because they didn't believe us. So we sent them that. We sent them the transcripts. We did everything, and they finally acquiesced. I said, listen, we can go in there again, but we're not going to get approved.
Well, as of today, they're not sending any cars to America, so
That's-
you may have a bigger
It's not a
problem
good
than
thing
this.
either, right?
Yeah.
We hope Mr. Miller bought plenty before it happened. So this is it. That concludes my presentation.
All right, board questions?
Is there any grass on the site?
Grass?
Yeah, grass, green grass.
Yeah. Did you not see the rendering? It's a forest of grass. There's the rendering.
So we're back to A7?
A1.
A1, all right.
A1.
Well, look at the landscape plan. In between all the trees is grass, so yes. The question we have is, this is in our property, correct? So this is maintenance of this is by the city.
The state, that's the state.
State highway.
Okay. All right, we'll stay on top of them.
If there's gonna be grass, then on page 7, under tools and equipment, you probably need a machine to cut the grass.
Well, we have outside services that provide the
You
landscape
got
maintenance.
chainsaw, stump grinder, backhoe, maintenance.
What exhibit is he talking about?
This is,
Site plan?
this is the preliminary and final site plan dated February 25.
I would say
Page 7.
Mr. Barlows didn't testify to the, to this, so we can always have Mr. Walker address a question if there's any remaining on your concerns here.
You're going to have an outside service cut the grass?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
He's on the business of cutting grass, so.
All right, any other board questions? Board professionals?
Yeah, I have one
Oh,
question.
sorry, Mr. Vesey.
So on the signage, you do have a fairly large sign on the building itself. Right, you have the 3 signs there. The pylon is, 3-inch tall letters, okay, I'm not sure how far you can actually see that or how long it'll take the public to.
1 foot 4 inches, 16 inches.
Right, how,
And 16 inches, probably 150 feet away from the highway, from Route 20.
from the highway, okay, so how much time would that give a driver to kind of see the sign and kind of, pull off and kind of and come into your driveway? Did you look at that at all?
Not really. The reality is these brands, your luxury brands, they're a destination. This is not a drive-by. You got to drive by a Land Rover store and say, you know what, honey, let's go buy a Land Rover today. They know where they are, and they're going to stop and shop there. So signage for us actually isn't as important because it's a brand between their advertising and what they do, and Mr. Miller is known for his luxury brands. They know it's there. They're not looking for the sign. That's why I acquiesced on the pylon to only a 1-inch letter.
Okay. All right, no more questions.
All right, board professionals.
I think the signage, the signage is now compliant with the ordinance.
Right.
And what is proposed is much more similar to what is allowed, and we allow pretty large signs. So it's good to see that they conformed, and I appreciate that. As far as any other questions for the architect, I have nothing right now. Thank you.
Two quick questions. So the way you described the building layout is you have sales on the right side or the east side, and then you have service on the left side, separated by the drive-through aisle for service clients, correct? And that's a covered drive-through.
Yeah, that's totally enclosed.
They check in their vehicle with the service rep, and then the service rep will drive it through to the rear of the site?
Yes.
And then it gets brought into the service bays, correct? Okay.
If there's loaners, they're parked by customer service.
The important thing is the vehicles waiting for service will drive in. They won't be parked in front. They won't be stacked out.
Actually,
I suspect.
To park in front.
Okay.
Other than the display vehicles.
Got it. And then just as far as the facade, there is no rooftop equipment of any kind proposed, or at least none that will be visible to the public?
None will be visible.
None?
I'm
You'll have it screened?
Between the setbacks, I was actually at the site the other day. We were talking about, can we get a sign on the back of the building, Route 287, but the reality is there's a forest between us and the highway, so you can't see anything.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Members of the public, questions? Seeing none. Mr. Silber, sorry with you, we'd like to take a quick break. It's 8:43. Why don't we come back at 8:50? All right, thank you.
Thank you all.
7 minutes, come on.
Our business is going to kill us. We bring 90%, 80% from China. We bring containers over.
All right, it's 8:50. We're going to come back in session. Nancy, we can have a roll call, please.
Chairman Foose?
Here.
Mr. Wadley?
Here.
Mr. Amin? I'm sorry, Mrs. Amin?
Yeah.
Mr. Sweeney? Mr. Fresco?
Yes, here.
Mr. Bongiorno?
Here.
Mr. Gajewski?
Here.
Mr. Seacat?
Here.
Mr. Kulak?
Here.
Mr. Vesio?
Here.
Mr. Gabbett?
Here.
And our professionals are all still here.
Mr. Silbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So our next witness is Mr. Craig Paragoy. He's a professional engineer, and if you want to...
Greg, would you rise and raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
And your full name again for the record, please?
Sure, my name is Craig, C-R-A-I-G, Paragoy, P-E-R-E-G-O-Y.
Thank you.
And Mr. Paragoy, we're going to have you testify as a traffic expert. Can you provide the board with your professional background and educational credentials, please?
Sure. I have a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from Virginia Tech. I'm a licensed professional engineer in New Jersey. I've testified hundreds of times in front of boards, including here in Bridgewater. It's been a while, but I've testified here a number of times as well as a traffic engineer.
All right, we accept you as an expert.
Thank you. So, Mr. Paragoy, please take it away.
Sure. I'll take you through our traffic report. I'll give you the brief version. Don't want to put everybody to sleep, but what we did in our report in terms of the traffic side of things is we analyzed the site access along Route 22. We took traffic counts during the weekday evening rush hour time periods and during the Saturday shopping time peak time periods. That's when you're going to see a car dealership at its busiest. What's interesting here is we picked up the counts along Route 22. I also looked at the Honda dealership next door to get an idea. You know, here's a perfect match, a car dealership right next door. How much traffic does it generate? And what we use to project traffic volumes is the ITE, or the Institute of Transportation Engineers, trip generation projections based on the size of the building. In this case, they have a specific land use for car dealerships. And if I were to use those projections for that Honda dealership, it's actually generating about half of what ITE says it would do. So I mentioned it to these guys about the Land Rover, and they're like, we're not even going to be close to the Honda. We're going to be half of that. So basically, my traffic report's looking at probably 4 times the amount of traffic that realistically we're going to see. But since we're on a state highway, we need DOT approval. I have to use those rates that keep me in the box with the ITE. And we meet all their criteria in terms of traffic impact. The driveway operates within an acceptable level of service for them. And that's sometimes a little bit difficult on these 3-lane sort of high-speed highways. I mean, we've had issues on Route 46, Route 17, where you have so much volume in those 3 lanes, it's hard to make it work. But here we have it working. So 4 times the amount of traffic, no modifications or any adjustments that we sometimes have to do on these types of roadways to show that it works, and it works. So from a traffic impact perspective, I certainly don't see any issues. As Mr. Walker mentioned, we submitted the application to the DOT. They're going to look at it with a fine-tooth comb in terms of the radii of the driveway and how everything operates and works. So we're beginning that process now. The second part of my analysis looked at the circulation of the site and the parking. I think we've covered the circulation fairly well in the prior witnesses. In terms of the parking, what we originally tried to do was take your ordinance and the various different uses in there and make it fit, because there is no specific car dealership, and that led to some back and forth at the last meeting about, oh, what about this space, this break room? So I think the more simple and the more appropriate way to look at it, and this is even in your ordinance, is the ITE's parking generation manual. Your ordinance says that may be, this is a quote from the ordinance, may be utilized for those unique parking circumstances and for uses not otherwise addressed in this section. So I think that fits. This isn't a business use and a service pays. It's a car dealership. It's one cohesive use, and it's been well studied by the ITE. And what they suggest is an average peak parking demand of 2.29 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet, which comes out to 57 parking spaces. That's not including those inventory spaces, that's customer spaces and employee spaces. We have 72 physical customer and employee spaces, so we exceed that standard. I think that is a much simpler way to look at it, even though using your ordinance, it did come pretty close to that number. But I think that makes a lot more sense. That's really it. And if anybody wants any more detail, happy to go into it, but I don't want to bore you with too much.
We have 72 physical spaces, and plus we're provided the EV credit.
4 EVs, so it's technically 76 provided. But there's
Board questions on traffic?
I have some questions to your report.
Sure.
Maybe you can help me understand this. Table 3 identifies the future level of service, but then kind of the narrative before explains that this is the existing levels of service, and it's a level of service E.
E, yes. There is no existing because there's no driveways there now. This is for the right turn out onto Route 22 is a level of service E. DOT requires it to be E or better, and generally that's almost an impossible result on a 3-lane highway like this, just because of the volume on there. So what they allow us to do is adjust it's called the critical gap, the gap that people take, classify it as a ramp and analyze it as a ramp. We've had to go through a lot of motions to get this to work. Otherwise, you couldn't build anything on Route 17 in Paramus, for example. It would never be better than an F level of service. Here, again, 4 times the traffic we actually anticipate, and it's an E. So this
It remains an E, you're saying? Okay, so right now the Honda dealership is an E, if you were to assess it.
I didn't analyze it, but I would.
But let's say you have a driveway on site, 1 car. Well, I guess it's hard to say.
It's generating more than we think is going to be here, but based on this, I'd say, yeah, they're about the same level of service. So the time it takes you to pull out of there, similar to here. Realistically, that analysis assumes that I'm waiting for a 6.5-second gap to make that right turn in traffic. So I need it to be clear for 6.5 seconds. That's based on national standards. And I can tell you in New Jersey, if you're waiting 6.5 seconds to make a right turn, somebody's going to be behind you laying on the horn. You're not going to get very far. So those little adjustments we've had to make in other locations and actually done time studies. None of that's necessary here. When I use the default values, the high traffic numbers that are probably not realistic, and the standard right turn at a stop sign numbers, we're good. We're at acceptable levels of service for DOT.
Okay, so I understand no change in level of service. Okay, thank you.
All right, board professionals.
Thank you. Can you just repeat what the IT ratio comparison was?
For parking?
Yes.
Yeah, it's 2.29 spaces per 1,000 square feet of building area.
And you base the 57 that calculated out from the 24,831 square feet?
24,831, yes.
Okay, thank you. I had raised in my review memo that there were other areas on the site plan or on the building layout, such as the car wash, the 2 future bays, the detailing, which weren't captured under the township parking standards. So if you look at page 6 of my report, table 2, it basically matched what they included on their site plan, that there was a sales area at a ratio of 1/300, which is kind of an office standard, and then the service area, which is under, we have automotive service stations, 3 spaces for each bay, plus 1 for each service vehicle, and they based it off 11 bays. So based on the ordinance and that calculation, which only captured the 11 bays, we were at 63 spaces. I had kind of questioned if that fully captured the whole building layout. I feel comfortable that the ITE ratio, parking ratio, is based upon car dealerships as a whole, as he mentioned, right? It's not just an office use and a service area. It's more cohesive, and I think probably mirrors it better. And if that number was far exceeded what they calculated here, I'd say maybe they were missing the detailing station and the car wash and everything like that. But it sounds like the IT probably captured it pretty well, and it's pretty on par with the parking calculation that showed up from what they based it on from the township standards. So I feel comfortable with that. I still think that we should use township standards only because they are codified, and it helps us to base off if there was variance relief or anything, or conformity with it. So we should keep that. But I feel more comfortable now hearing the testimony from the traffic engineer that they've captured the parking adequately, the requirements adequately. Thank you. I have nothing else for this witness.
Thank you. Craig, we received a copy of, I guess, a courtesy copy of your DOT application.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you submitting that. Just a question, just as far as your experience is concerned dealing with DOT on projects like this, based on the current proposal, layout, et cetera, do you have any concerns that this won't be approved by DOT?
No, no. I mean, it's the only place we can have access, so they really kind of have to approve it, but they're gonna make this radius a half a foot different, they'll look at the little tiny.
So that you can't envision a scenario where they would come back with any conditions that you wouldn't be able to meet?
No.
No, okay. And as far as the on-site circulation, particularly the loading vehicle movements for the loading trucks, have you reviewed Mr. Walker's exhibit? Have you taken a look at the truck turning?
Yes.
And you have no concerns, you're comfortable that a truck carrier can navigate the site as proposed?
Yes, absolutely, 100%, no problem.
Very good, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Bill. Members of the public, questions on traffic? Seeing none.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, we have one final witness. Would like to call Mr. John McDonough. Mr. McDonough is a professional planner, has appeared before this board many times. He's also a licensed landscape architect. So if it's okay, once he's sworn in, I'd like to qualify him as both professional planner and landscape architect.
John, would you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
Yes, I do.
And your name for the record, please?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is John McDonough, MC, capital DONOUGH.
And Mr. McDonough, if you wouldn't mind giving your professional background and education credentials, both in the field of planning and landscape architecture.
Sure. I'm a licensed professional planner here in the state of New Jersey. That license is current and it's in good standing. I'm also a member of the American Institute of Certified Planners. Should I go back to the beginning? For the record, John McDonough, licensed professional planner, state of New Jersey. That license is current and in good standing. Also, a member of the AICP. That's our national certification that allows us to testify anywhere throughout the union. That is also current and in good standing. And then finally, I am qualifying as a landscape architect. I am not the landscape architect of record on the plan, but I have reviewed it, and we'll come back to that as we go forward with the testimony.
All right, we're good as an expert, Mr. McDonough. Thank you, in both those areas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Please, Mr. McDonough, do your thing.
Okay, so we're here for a use variance. We're here in the GC, General Commercial District. We're going to walk you through the criteria for use relief. It's generally a 4-part test. The first part of the test focuses on the land. I call it the site suitability test. As with all land use planning, we start with a look at the land and the physical characteristics of the land and how this particular use marries up well with that land. So with your permission, Mr. Chair, I have some handout exhibits, a satellite image, and then some drone shots that we took of the subject property as well. So
Mark it as A9.
A9.
And it consists of 4 pages.
John, we just had a member of the public come in as well. Let's make sure those folks get a copy. Thank you.
yeah, I think more than 20 copies. What number was his?
A9.
Okay, so it looks like everybody has A9, 4 pages. I put it together myself. First page is going to be an aerial satellite image of the subject property looking top down. We've outlined the subject property in yellow. You've seen very similar mapping and photographs on previous exhibits before the board. But the key point here, one of the last vestiges of open land, undeveloped land left in the area. It was previously developed, as we know, for commercial use, but has laid fallow, underutilized, unproductive along one of your prime commercial corridors for too long now. We have an applicant that is ready, willing, and able to take this underutilized land and put it back to productive use, which is a good thing from a planning standpoint. As you've heard, it's a single tax lot, block 559, lot 5.02. It's about 5 acres. It is an offshoot of the Honda lot that was originally one combined lot back in 2010. When that Honda dealership got approved, I was actually part of that application. I was the landscape architect on that application as well. This piece got subdivided off for some future use. Nothing has manifested in the 12 to 15 or so years since we were involved with that application. And as I say, we now have an applicant that is ready, willing, and able to step up and put something productive here. We're here along the Route 22 corridor. There's a lot of references to 22 in your master plan going back to 1976, 1990, your second master plan, and then all of those re-examination reports. I counted about 14 or so of them since that time, talking about your commercial corridors, in particular Route 22, with a focus not only on the economic viability, but on the look as well, the visual impact. And we think the applicant has struck that good balance here in providing for economic development and also a significantly positive aesthetic, a nice feature building, and a complementary landscape to go around it. What's important, and you saw that on one of the original exhibits, I'm going to turn back to A4 for the record, is the aerial photograph that shows the subject property embedded within the overall aerial and the continuity of the building lines that have already been established along 22 and the respecting of the setback with respect to parking, so that nice green band that you see in the exhibit that I've provided you on page 1 of A9 is also going to be continued as part of the development plan as shown under A4. So I thought that was important in terms of the layout, that the general size of the building, its mass and scale, and the overall layout, the setbacks of both the building and the parking are going to complement that which has already been established in the area. Pages 2, 3, and 4 are aerial drone photographs to show, again, the condition of the subject property from various vantage points. These were taken back on a snowy day in January. The key point here, it's underutilized land. It's been this way for now over a decade. And it is previously disturbed land, but for the trees that you see in the back corner, which are environmentally constrained through wetlands and DEP regulated lands. We're going to kind of look at that preservation as somewhat offsetting the relief that the applicant is asking the board to move on in terms of deficiency of proposed plantings. We think the applicant has put forth a plan here that is lush with landscaping, and there's a pretty robust plan here that's even more aggressive than we saw over on the Honda side. One of the members had a question about grass areas. Importantly, there's relatively little grass areas on this development. Essentially, where Mr. Walker's team could put a circle for a plant, he has done so. So this is going to be a substantially planted area, somewhat different than what we saw over on the Honda side, which had the carpet in the front going up to a row of plantings along the parking lot. So even more plantings being proposed here. In terms of the area, this is Route 22 West. The surroundings are developed with commercial uses, including several dealerships in the area. We know that dealerships tend to like to concentrate in close proximity to each other. Sort of an economic central place theory follows that, and that's something that we're seeing here, that there are dealerships in close proximity. The plan before you is to construct a new Land Rover dealership with those 3-in-1 brands. We're looking at 24,831 square feet, plus or minus. We've got the sales service building and 243 parking spaces. So we're here in the GC General Commercial District, which is a zone that is intended to provide for services and employment and minimize visual impacts. Again, that's a recurring theme in your master plan that goes all the way back to 1975. Permitted uses here are highly variable, and yet none of them have manifested on the site. You're looking at retail, restaurants, commercial uses, business uses, and medical centers are all permitted in this zone, none of which have materialized on the site. The relief, the primary relief the applicant is asking the board to move on is D1, use relief, and that existing dealerships are permitted in the GC zone, but new dealerships are not. So again, we'll take you through the 4 parts of the D test. Number 1, the site is particularly suitable for the use by virtue of its condition and context. Contextually, the site is in a non-residential area. The use is compatible with its surroundings. Condition-wise, the site is spacious. It is generally unconstrained and supports the layout shown. Second, we move to the land use law. We move from the land to the land use law. The project as a whole will advance multiple purposes of the land use law at NJSA 40:55D-2, including Purpose A, the promotion of the general welfare, because this will provide a high-end auto brand that is not locally available, and Bridgewater residents must travel far for this brand. Purpose G, the project will promote the planning goal to provide for a variety of uses in appropriate locations because it provides a service use along a service corridor in close proximity to other dealerships, again playing off of the central place theory and economics. Additionally, Purpose I, the project will promote a desirable visual environment because it will provide a classy, attractive building and grounds and high-end brand names that will enhance the image and the identity of the corridor and the community. Next, Purpose M, which is the project promoting the planning goal for efficient use of land because it will put underutilized commercial land back into productive functional use. That's part 2 of the test. Part 3 now looks at those positives that I just gave you, and we focus on the potentially negative impacts. You have a significant body of evidence before you, and based on all of the testimony, operationally, you just heard traffic, site engineering, architecturally, there are no impacts of a substantially adverse nature functionally or visually that remain unaddressed or unresolved. I think there was great movement with the application and the applicant in terms of the sign, which was a big sticking point back in January. Again, based on all the testimony, the development will nicely integrate with the site and with the area. Therefore, use relief at this location can be granted without substantial detriment to the public. That's part 3 of the test. Part 4 of the test, we now go back and look at the intent and purpose of your zone plan and ordinance. Again, I looked at your master plan going back to 1975, recurring objectives that we see in 1975, 1990, and all of those re-examinations since that time include to preserve the character of the community, to provide a balance of uses, to safeguard the tax base through appropriate use of non-residential lands, to conserve natural resources, and to provide for visual and economic benefits as well. All of those are advanced by the repurposing of this vacant commercial site. Additionally, under the master plan reconciliation and the omission of the use from the zone, the project is consistent with the zone intent to provide service uses and minimize visual impact. It is also consistent with the master plan goal for encouraging uses along Route 22 that provide economic benefit and improve visual quality. The reconciliation of the omission of the use from the zone is satisfied by the distinct attributes of this end user. I've done many applications for this end user. They deliver a very classy product. They've done so throughout New Jersey. There are examples in many communities. And bear in mind that this land was formerly associated with the Honda site as well, which is a dealership. So I think the board can move favorably on this application as not being a substantial departure from the zone plan and ordinance, certainly not with creating substantial impairment to the intent and purpose of the zone plan and ordinance. Existing dealerships, again, are permitted by right as a conditional use. This is essentially an extension of that Honda land. It's a spacious site. It's on a primary commercial corridor. It's in a permissive zone that allows for a wide variety of uses. And again, none of those permitted uses have manifested over many years, and the site remains stagnant, which in my view is contrary to the zone intent for a vibrant commercial base along the corridor. There are a number of variances that were called out in Catherine's report. As always, she's given you a good outlay of things to think about with respect to this application, primarily the D1, but the subsidiary relief as well. We'll walk through that. There are about 8 or so variances that the applicant is asking the board to move on the C level, which I would offer are subsumed within that D. You can consider it all as part and parcel one thing. First, the C relief for the front setback. As Exhibit A4 shows, the setback is 100.5 feet, where 200 feet would be the minimum that's required. And again, that is consistent with the prevailing setback on Route 22. There is also related C relief for the parking setback, where 50.5 is provided and 100 feet is the minimum that's required. Again, our applicant has done a good job of following the line. Our applicant told me that when they started this project, they struck that prevailing line for the building, struck the prevailing line for the parking, and essentially mimicked it with the proposed design here. C relief for the parking stall width at 9 feet versus 9.5 feet, which we believe is appropriate given the nature of the use here. There's no shopping carts. There's no need for extra width. Again, it's a combination of employees, service parking, and display vehicles. So we think for this particular land use, the 9 versus the 9.5 is appropriate. Likewise, C relief for the loading space number, where 1 is provided, where 2 are the minimum that's required, justified based on the operational testimony and the engineering testimony that you heard, that we are dealing with an experienced operator here. The supply is adequate, and I believe the testimony is that the bigger deliveries will come after hours. C relief for the loading space dimension, where we're looking at slightly longer than what the ordinance requires, 32 feet, where 30 would be the requirement, and slightly deficient on the width, where 12 feet is provided, where 15 feet would be required. Again, this is in the interest of efficient use of land, based on the experience of an experienced operator as well, and I think you have good, solid technical support for that relief as well. There is C relief related to the landscaping, where we're looking at landscape trees of 33, as you've heard through Mr. Walker's testimony this evening, where 114 are required. I think there's a mitigating measure here by virtue of the fact that the applicant has essentially filled as much space as it can with plantings. The applicant is not asking the board to move on coverage relief here, building or lot coverage, so we're working within the confines of the green space that we can. We're also dealing with some preserved land, so the preservation of trees, we think, mitigates the deficiency of trees where 33 are provided, 114 would be required. The foundation plantings, there are 15 proposed, where 379 would be required. This is an auto dealership. We're looking to provide for safe and efficient access into and out of the building. This is not a retail or an office building per se, so we think that the plan is reasonable and appropriate in that regard. The number of shade trees, the ordinance requires 1 shade tree for every 10 parking spaces, so that would be 25 trees being required in the parking lot where 0 are provided. This is similar to what we see on the Honda dealership next door. In the interest of providing for efficiency of parking, we are dealing with newer vehicles here, so we're looking to minimize impacts from trees on those vehicles as well. Likewise, with planting islands, where none are provided at the end of the bays, 4 feet would be required for the same rationale, given the nature of the use. And then finally, planting islands for every greater, whenever there's 20 parking spaces in a row, an interrupting plant island should be included in the plan. Similar to what we see on the Honda side, this will maintain a continuous row that exceeds 20 without a tree for the same rationale as before. So just by way of recap, 1 D variance, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 10 or so C variances related to landscaping, loading, and parking. And we reconcile all of that C relief under the flexible C balancing test, where the benefits of the application as a whole would substantially outweigh any detriments. We'll turn to the pull-in case there. All of those use benefits cited above carry forth. All C relief is necessary to effectuate a beneficial use. Based on all of the testimony, I believe that the C relief will have minimal, if any, impacts, and the balancing lands squarely on the positive side here. The statutory test for the D relief is also met. I had a whole bunch of proofs for the sign package, but that's gone away, so that shortens the testimony here. With that said, I think this application is consistent with good planning principles. It is a nice fit within the space, nice fit within the surrounding area. I don't see it as doing substantial harm to your zone plan and ordinance, particularly with the emphasis on visual quality. I think the board can move favorably here without acting tantamount to a rezone, overstepping your boundary and doing something only the governing body would have authority to do. All said, I believe the statutory criteria for D and subsidiary relief, C relief are met, and approval is warranted.
Two very quick points, and thank you for that. Just to clarify, so the loading space, I have from the ordinance that the minimum required is 12 feet by 50 feet, and that we're seeking relief to provide 12 feet by 32 feet. So maybe you could just speak to that, and if I misheard you, I'm sorry. I thought you said it was...
Yeah, I have 15 by 30, but I'm just going to check here. 12 by 50 is the actual number, yes. So the width is correct. It's the depth that is not correct. So again, we're going to rely on the experience of the operator here, that the size is adequate to meet the demand of the deliveries that will come on site.
And then one quick point or question. Obviously, you focused a lot on the fact that the site was previously developed. Is it fair to say that even with this redevelopment, there will be more trees existing on the site when this is all said and done than what currently exists on a vacant site?
Yes, it's a bare vacant site now. I went back and looked at that Honda landscape plan. It looks good. I like the fact that there are less grass areas on this particular site because that's less opportunity to park a vehicle there. So yes, I think the applicant has done a real good job of filling that void with landscaping.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
All right, thank you. Board questions for Mr. McDonough.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. On slide 1, Mr. McDonough, we can see there's an Acura dealer 2 lots immediately to the east of your site. There's a Honda dealer immediately adjacent to the west. And if your slide extended further west, we'd see there's also a 4th non-permitted use in the Volkswagen dealer that's out that way. I'm looking at those and thinking about the proof that's required to show that what you want to do is not inconsistent with the intent and purpose of the master plan and land development ordinance. And I don't have an issue, but I want to hear your comments on this. We're looking at 4 examples within I don't know, half a mile distance on Route 22, maybe a mile. They're all non-permitted uses, new car dealerships, right? If there were just one, you could probably argue that it's not inconsistent with the intent and purpose of the master plan. If there were 2, you might make that argument. If there were 3, you might make that argument. But this would be number 4 in terms of a non-permitted use within that relatively short distance of Route 22. Talk to me then about why these 4 are not inconsistent with the intent and purpose of the master plan and land development ordinance.
I got you, Mr. Sweeney, and I understand the concern. Reminding the board that in the GC zone, existing auto dealerships are not non-conforming. They're actually permitted as a conditional use in the zone. So in my view, those existing dealerships are not non-conforming. So this is really not the 4th in the chain. This would be the first one in the door. This would be the first non-conforming use in the door. So it's not creating a pattern of non-conforming uses. Those existing dealerships are recognized by the zone plan as being lawfully existing. They're not inconsistent with the master plan.
And Mr. McDonough, the expansion of those dealerships are also permitted. So, for example, because Honda, as you had testified to, had owned this piece of property that's before the board this evening. So is it fair to say that Honda could have expanded its dealership without subdividing the property, and that would have been totally permitted under the ordinance?
When it was one lot, correct, yes.
Correct, okay.
I just want to correct that. Some context, and I don't mean to interrupt the response to Mr. Sweeney, but some context might be helpful, because when the Honda dealership subdivided, it was a permitted conditional use at the time. So by the time the subdivision happened, actually right thereafter, it basically made the subject piece of property not permitted to have an expanded dealership on the property. You're allowed to expand the use as a conditional use on the existing lot. So by the time they subdivided and perfected that subdivision, they basically X'd out the ability to do that on this site as an extension of Honda. But the context that I wanted to give to Mr. Sweeney and to the applicant as well, it's sort of a response to Mr. McDonough, is that the Honda dealership was approved. They did own this lot and then subdivided it. About a month after that approval, because they came in as a permitted conditional use, they met the conditions, they were at the planning board. About a month after, there was a master plan reexamination done in 2010, which rezoned this strip of property. It used to be GCM, it was general commercial and manufacturing, which the median still is, and made specific recommendations as to why this should be the GC zone and why the GC zone wouldn't permit additional car dealerships. And that was related to providing uses that serve township residents, nearby workers, passing motorists in a manner that provides desired employment and services, yet minimizes visual impact. So I think they're all good on that. And then there's like 4 guiding principles. One of them being used and new car dealerships should not be specifically not permitted in the zone. Now I think what's interesting about that is that since that was rezoned, that nothing has happened on this property. You know, for the last 15 years, nobody has developed anything on the property. And now what we're seeing, and maybe the policy decision at the time was, okay, time to put a stop on new car dealerships, we have plenty, is maybe that's the use that does fit the site.
Oh, and the suitability is still, you can't question it because there's a Honda dealer adjacent to the property.
Next door. So I think maybe there was a policy decision for the master plan, and I was going to bring this up because I don't think Mr. McDonough brought it up about this 2010 master plan, because I think if you look at it in a bubble, this is in violation of that master plan amendment. But if you look at the context and say, well, that happened 15 years ago, and it didn't go the way the master plan envisioned. It didn't produce different uses and didn't push it away from producing different uses. It basically has sat vacant.
Do you feel that market forces have kind of dictated that, you know, the suitability for this is in the right place?
I think that's why car dealerships probably, they didn't come here because well, partially because the zoning existed that allowed for it at the time as a conditional use and they met the conditions. I think it also happens that car dealerships do well on commercial corridors and regional corridors. And so the zoning matched up with that. I think whatever the policy decision was in 2010, maybe they thought that enough is, like I said, there's enough car dealers. But I think that it's probably very telling that nothing happened, and maybe the site is perfect for a car dealership because so many exist around it, because it's on a regional corridor. I'm not trying to testify for the applicant, but I think it should just be considered by the board to say, despite the master plan from 2010, keep it in your mind, but understand that it did nothing to help promote other uses on the site.
And the last thing I'm going to say is we're undergoing in Bridgewater Township a master plan review currently, right?
We are.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I ask one question? If that had been one lot and that was Paul Miller Honda, could you put Paul Miller Jaguar, another actual dealership on that lot? Or would it had to expand it as the Honda deal?
Saying if they never subdivided it?
Yeah, if they never subdivided.
It could be another brand, mate.
They could have put another brand
combined,
on it.
right? So they
Okay.
across the street.
Because the Jeep dealer has 3 different
Jeep,
brands.
Chrysler,
Yeah, that's what I-
Dodge,
Ford.
whatever.
Right.
Very likely because it's under an umbrella. A lot of times these dealerships, they absolutely could do that.
Okay, so they could have done.
Could have done that. Sorry.
I understand. Yeah. So okay. That's all. Thanks.
Do you need more? I will say the 2022 master plan, which is even more recent than the 2010 master plan, came on the heels of COVID, made recommendations to reconsider some of the uses along the district there, or re-examine some of the uses.
That was the
Trends.
2022 review?
A master plan re-examine.
Okay.
I can get you the exact quote, it's back there in the computer.
All right, anyone else? You lost members of the public, just FYI. They're gone. So, Catherine, any follow-up?
I don't think so. I just thought that was an important piece because the 2020.
That was very helpful.
Yeah, the 2010 master plan amendment was specific to the 22 corridor. It was really pushed by an economic development look at the corridor and how they could enhance different parts of 22, not just this zone. But it was the genesis of the rezoning for the site, so I thought it was important. And I thought it was interesting. It's a little bit of history to the site and to the zoning of the site.
In your opinion, is 14, 15 years enough time to pass that, the market has kind of ruled on this piece of property that, we tried and we couldn't get a economic use, and here we are back at a 2010 type use?
I would say so. I'd say that we have a very healthy development corridor here in 22, and there has been turnover and change of certain uses and investment and interest in sites that are no longer being used what they were in the past. And in 2010 or so, the Courier News building was demolished here, and it still didn't see any activity. It didn't even see approval activity. It didn't see interest in the form of an application that even got shot down. So I'd say yes for that history.
Do you feel that the plan as proposed is perhaps a less intensive use than some of the other approved uses in the master plan?
Oh, I think so. I think that car dealerships see, up and down, so I don't want to say that, blanketly, but I'd say for the most part, a car dealership isn't the most intense use.
Thank you.
Well, depending on whether it's a luxury brand or not, right? It
I think that as well.
makes a big difference.
The approval's going to run with the land, so,
That's what, yeah.
if
we're
Land Rover
approving a
decides to
car
never send a
dealership,
car here.
Yeah, that's what I just want to make sure.
Having certain umbrella brands, having a number of different offerings, that impacts it. But having a luxury brand that's specific to just one owner, that also changes it up a little bit. I don't know if the board would like to stipulate that, maybe that it not be ever expanded to a number of different dealership brands.
Within the one lot?
Within the one lot, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think
Agree.
that's.
I would agree.
Slippery slope.
But I will say this, and I don't have to make closing remarks, but What we've done is, we have a dealership that's 25,000 square feet on this approved site plan. We've addressed concerns very conscientiously with the township in the planning stages to try to design this so that the issues that the township faces with existing dealerships won't be faced with this property, irrespective of who the user is. So while I don't have a crystal ball and I can't say that there'll be a luxury car brand 30 years from now, I can say that the plan before you is trying to address all of the issues that you have with your existing dealerships, parking in the front, unloading on the shoulder, square footage is 25,000, so you can't have a volume dealership anyway. So those are things I'd ask the board to put in perspective if they're concerned what could be of this property if they grant this variance or the number of variances 25, 30 years down the road.
Okay.
I'd say one more concern, and I think I brought it up, maybe it just was me, is inventory, is car inventory. Is sometimes we see surplus, and you saw it actually if you looked at old aerials, that Honda was parking some of their cars on this portion of the site. So that is a concern, and that would lump in with, the potential ownership. But I think what Mr. Silbert said, I think probably the conditions that have been imposed, the size of the building, just wouldn't even, I'd hope it wouldn't be, but that's probably a note to the quality of the brands, but the amount of space they have dedicated to office right now probably couldn't even accommodate multiple.
We've been pretty tough. There's a lot of stipulations here, and, Rich is going to read them back before we deliberate, but I don't know how a used car or high-volume dealer would even operate here.
Be surprised, but.
True.
Yeah.
True.
So I think you're correct, though. I think we have imposed a number of conditions, and I was just throwing it out there if the board, wanted to consider something like that for extra protection, but I think you're right, probably.
Just from an economic freedom and use of land perspective, I just hesitate in every case to go down and tell anyone how to use their land and, outside of safety and stormwater. And I think that applies here, and I think your intentions are right. I just really hesitate, just as any land use board, master plan can address it. It's all you and Mr. Kulak can hammer that out in the next master plan. Thank you. Bill.
I don't have any questions, Mr. Chairman.
All right, members of the public, questions, Mr. McDonough? All right, seeing none.
So, Mr. Chairman and board professionals, that concludes our application. I don't have too many closing remarks. Obviously, we've tried to work with the board and address some of the main concerns early on. I said a couple of statements moments ago about trying to make the board feel a little comfortable on what can happen in the future down the road. And I thank the board for their time. I thank the board professionals for their time and previous professionals for helping us along the way, as this has been an application a number of years in the making. And I just ask that you look favorably upon this application and take note of the efforts that we've made to put together something that you and the whole township could be proud of. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Silbert. Rich, could you take us through stipulations and conditions, please?
If there's a motion for approval, the conditions we discussed were that there'd be no parking other than in designated parking areas. The entranceway and the exit drive would be striped and marked as fire lane, no parking. The applicant would not block any fire lanes when vehicles are delivered to the site. There shall be no unloading of vehicles on Route 22. You'll provide a Knox box in the location acceptable to the fire marshal. The car wash shall not be for use by the general public. Show on the landscape plan that 33 trees shall be planted on site. Plant shrub varieties in locations acceptable to the township planner. The applicant shall dedicate an access easement for a right of entry to the township so that the township may inspect the waterway located in the northeast corner.
The right, but not the obligation.
Right, I'm getting there.
Sorry.
Yeah. But again, the right, but not the obligation to do it, but just to inspect it. And only an American flag shall fly on the flagpole. All right?
Good.
Mr. Chairman, can I just ask a question to our planner? There's currently a cross-access easement between this property and the Honda dealership. Is that something that should be, revoked at this moment since the site's being developed? It's on the adjacent property. I'm not sure if really we would even have any jurisdiction on that, but it doesn't seem that,
I think for safety, I'd like to keep it in case there is a situation, a car accident on Route 22 where an ambulance couldn't get in, but they could get in via the Honda dealer. We've done this in other contingent properties, adjacent properties.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a number of reasons, leaving legal reasons aside, why the easements, it would be wise to leave them intact. I don't think that they would pose any type of significant concern, so.
all right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, Rich. That was all. That was all great. All right, let's throw it down to Mr. Gaddis. If we can start deliberations, please.
All right, so as Mr. Sweeney pointed out, there's already several dealerships in this area. I'm not super concerned from a use perspective. My big concern had been the signage, and to borrow a phrase from the chairman, setting off an arms race with the signs. I know how hard a brand book can be to overrule or change, so the fact that you went through all that trouble to do so shows a lot of effort on your part to try to meet our concerns. So I would be in favor of this.
I similarly support the application. I think that we can also take some comfort in that you have a design that's purpose-built for a luxury brand, and in the future, it would be difficult to vary from that use without considerable redesign and development and perhaps an appearance before this board or some other board that might have jurisdiction at that time. I think overall, it's a great addition to the community of businesses, and that having a luxury brand like that would be welcome in Bridgewater. Thank you.
Yeah, I would support the application. I think the use fits. Nothing has panned out over the last 15 years, so I'm willing to, see something change. I appreciate all the changes you've made to, fit in as much as possible. I'm a little disappointed about the trees, but I know it's a car dealership, and that's something you don't want. And there's going to be more trees than there are already now. So I would favor the application.
Yeah, I agree with the other board members so far, and I think this could have actually happened probably half a dozen different ways, and this lot hasn't been used in 15 years. And as far as luxury brand going here, the dealership is coming to this area because it fits the demographic in the area, and should it change in the future, then something that might be appropriate at that time would be there, so I'm comfortable with that as well. I would be in favor of the application.
I'd be in favor of the application. I would like to see more plantings if possible, but I think it was well presented. I still don't get the 3-inch letters though I just don't get it, but I'm in favor of the application. I want to see the land put to good use.
Like I said at the first meeting, my main concern was the sign, along with Mr. Foos here. You took care of that, obviously, so that took care of a major thing. It's hard to believe that property's been empty now for 15 years. I probably pass it 15 to 20 times a week. And I always look up there and try to imagine what's going to be there, because it's going to be developed. Obviously, probably get passed in a few minutes here. And I think you did a terrific job at putting what's going to be a nice building up there. It's going to look nice next to the Honda and fill in that area that's been empty for 15 years, and I'm in favor of the application.
Thank you. Mrs. Amin, your thoughts, please.
The way I look at this project is that particular lot has been empty for so many years. The Korean news moved out, and putting this facility in there will be an improvement, overall improvement for that area. Now, some of the comments that I am hearing from our board members, looking at it, yeah, maybe some of the conditions we can put in there, but I would prefer to vote in favor of yes.
Thank you. Mr. Sweeney.
I think you guys did a good job in terms of addressing the issues and problems that the board had, and therefore I'll vote in favor of your application.
All right, thank you. Mr. Fresco.
Listen, this is a no-brainer, okay? I would have voted for this in January, okay? This thing's been empty forever. There's a dozen other dealerships, excuse the exaggeration, all right? It's an innovative, smart, fresh design. You've got plenty of landscaping. Look at the other dealerships. Do they have as much landscaping? It's a car dealership. You can't have trees. You guys said that. Yeah, I wish you the best of luck. I can't wait to have it. I can't wait to see the commercials. You know, I said it with the Starbucks case. You're going to come to Bridgewater. We want the best Starbucks. We want the best Paul Miller. So thank you for coming. I wish you the best of luck.
This is what happens when he misses a Yankees game tonight. Yeah. Mr. Vessia.
I'm in favor of the application. I mean, there's certainly precedence for car dealerships in this area. I mean, the eastbound has even more than the westbound area here. And Mr. Sweeney, identified the ones that are very near this area. It's been sitting empty. It needs to use. So I'm for this application. Thanks.
All right, and last, I have nothing to add except thank you for addressing our concerns. Paul Miller's a top tier, top shelf brand. They're like it's not going to get any better, and I think their application reflected it. Thank you, Mr. Silber. You know our town really well. You're in front of both boards all the time. I think your applicant made a wise decision hiring you. Thank you for all your due diligence and what you do for Bridgewater. Mr. McDonough, it's your friendly face. You're the Michael Jordan of planning. Thank you. I'm going to vote in favor.
Thank you.
So if there's nothing else, motion. Mr. Fresco made the motion. Do I have a second? Mr. Widley was the second.
Mr. Gajewski.
Yes.
Mr. Bongiorno.
Yes.
Mr. Fresco.
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney.
Yes.
Mrs. Amin. Mr. Wiley.
Yes.
Chairman Foose.
Yes. All right. Good job. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Our next meeting is going to be April 22nd. We have a residential case, and we have Rockland APV, which is an interesting battery storage technology case. And please read your packets. Nancy, do you have any more info?
Nope, I don't have anything.
All right, so 7 p.m., April 22nd. If there's nothing further, motion to adjourn, please. Mr. Wiley and Mr. Bongiorno. Thank you, everyone.
Look at what I get to get rid of.
I know, it's